All right, hello and welcome to the May 18th Manhattan Community Board 5 Parks, Public Spaces and Environment Committee. I am Libby. I am the chair. Our vice chair is out tonight, but John Klein will be stepping in to help take notes and run our votes. We just begin by introducing ourselves and going around the room, starting with my left. Theo Kelly.
Christopher Rizzo.
Andy Yang.
Michael K-Back. John Klein.
John Harris.
And online.
You got Todd Shapiro here.
Tom Ricardo.
Okay, great. I don't believe we have quorum just yet, but I believe we will reach quorum. Oh. We have an additional person who does not count. I think, what are we at? We're at 8.
7.
Does that count with our numbers?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that we do have.
I'd really like to join this meeting today, but I can't if I can't hear you. And I'm sitting here, so I can't read over there. Should please do me the honor of speaking loud and not so fast. You
Yeah,
can do it if you try.
I'm confirming quorum. And we have someone who does not count against our quorum right now, who is absent, so that's fine. So we're gonna get started. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. For each item, I just want to remind everyone that we're gonna hear our applicant or presenter. We're gonna open the floor. I will ask questions. I will then ask the committee to ask additional questions that have not been covered. Please just keep them pertinent to the conversation and as a decision point if it's going to impact how you're going to be voting on the item. And then I will open it for public comment. And then we'll return to a business session for deliberation and an action if it's appropriate for that item. As a reminder, during the business session, only members of the committee are allowed to speak. Unless I specifically invite a response from one of the applicants or presenters as a point of clarification. And once again, just please direct all comments to the chair and wait to be recognized so we can avoid crosstalk. All right, so our 3 items tonight. First, we have the review of Assembly Bill A1749A. This is a bill introduced by Assemblymember Deborah Glick, and it's referred to as PRRIA. That's the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, which aims to reduce excessive packaging. We have Judith Enck here to present. Then we will have the Nike activation proposed for Bryant Park by Adecco Productions, LLC. It's an immersive street soccer and cultural experience. And then we have a report from the Commercial Use Task Force, and an update on that process and where things stand. And then any new business. So without further ado, Judith, would you like to introduce the bill and tell us a little bit more about one of our environmental items?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to meet you. My name is Judith Enck. I'm the founder and president of an organization called Beyond Plastics. And prior to that, I served as EPA Region 2 Regional Administrator, and I'm the co-author of a new book, subtly displayed over my shoulder, The Problem with Plastic, in case people want to really dig deep on plastics issues. So I'm really excited to talk to you about Assemblywoman Deborah Glick's bill, the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, which is pending in Albany. And having your community board weigh in support would be invaluable. The most important thing I want to say is Assemblywoman Deborah Glick has been just a profoundly heroic and strong environmental champion in Albany. And I'm really sad she's leaving Albany at the end of this year, but she is working really hard to pass this bill, which would be the most sweeping plastics reduction bill in the country. 15 community boards have already passed resolutions in support of the bill, including 3 in Manhattan. And the legislature is scheduled to adjourn by June 4th. So we really hope that some action can be taken and communicated before that. So this is important because plastics is polluting our rivers and oceans. Plastics are made from chemicals and fossil fuels, making it a climate change issue. Reducing plastic packaging will save tax dollars, and perhaps most importantly, plastics is an environmental justice issue in terms of where it is produced and disposed of, and it's a health issue. Just in the last few years, scientists have identified microplastics 5 millimeters or less in different parts of our body. Unfortunately, microplastics have been found in our bloodstream, lungs, kidneys, brain. It's crossed the blood-brain barrier, in arteries, contributing to serious health impacts, the human placenta, testicles, and breast milk. That should all be a clarion call to take action. And there's a really terrific new movie on Netflix called The Plastic Detox, which I highly recommend you all take a look at in your ample spare time. So this bill would tackle a really profoundly important global issue. What Assemblymember Glick's bill does is require a reduction in single-use plastic packaging only by 30% over 12 years. It bans the most toxic chemicals used in packaging, including the entire PFAS family of chemicals: lead, cadmium, mercury, formaldehyde. I don't know about you, but I don't want formaldehyde in packaging that's touching my food and my beverages. The bill puts a modest fee on packaging, with new money flowing to local governments to support waste reduction and recycling programs. And then finally, the bill does not allow for the polluting chemical recycling to count as real recycling. So huge taxpayer savings in New York City in two ways. One is, if you reduce single-use packaging, there's less material to pick up in diesel trucks, to transport and process. We calculate that this avoided cost would save New York City about $114 million every year. And then secondly, New York City will receive new revenue from the fees on packaging. And we believe that'll be about $266 million per year. So this is a multi-million-dollar savings for New York City. I was just on a news conference this morning with people who live in the Finger Lakes. New York City has no landfills or incinerators. The city of New York spends close to $500 million a year exporting its solid waste to other communities. And our friends in the Finger Lakes don't want to take New York City's waste any to Newark, New Jersey, where it's burned in a polluting garbage incinerator, and it's trucked as far away as South Carolina. So this is a real opportunity to reduce waste. There's vast public support for this. There was a poll last year by Siena College. 73% of New York registered voters that were polled support this bill. Assemblymember Glick has made many amendments to try to make the system more workable for companies. And I think we should just also put this in context. At the federal level, the federal government is walking away from environmental protection. It's heartbreaking to see my former agency, the EPA, really reduced in their ability to provide clean drinking water and clean air. So this is really an opportunity for states to step up. The legislative session has been weird because the state budget is late. It was due April 1st. So we only have until June 4th to get this bill through. It's already passed in the New York State Senate 2 years in a row, and it's on the Assembly floor, and we need to get it to come up for a vote in the Assembly. So I think I am just on time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you so much for presenting that. Lots of really good information. Does anyone have any additional questions about the legislation itself? Additional concerns to find out more information about? Yes, Christopher?
So, included among the materials for this was a community board resolution like template, I think, that looks
Yes.
pretty good. Is there anything about that template that you want us to know before we start thinking about how to draft something like that?
I haven't seen the template, but I'm sure it's good if you got it from the Assemblywoman's office. My only comment is speed. I know this is your committee. The legislature is going to adjourn June 4th. So I don't know if there's enough time for you to bring it to the full community board. If not, maybe you can communicate committee support if you don't have the ability for the full board to vote on this by June 4th. Now, the other thing I'll say is if we get it through the assembly, which we don't know, then it goes to the governor. So still keep moving with your full community board process, because hopefully we'll have an opportunity to convince Governor Hochul to sign this into law. But to be perfectly honest, the struggle right now is to get it through the assembly. So even communicating committee support would be helpful. Tons of information on our website, beyondplastics.org.
Okay. Does anyone else have any additional questions? Christopher?
Well, then just the process question is, can we send like a letter from the, like, along with the resolution, so we can do both things at once? Like, we have a resolution that's gonna make its way to full board, but also, just for the sake of speed, say the committee support with a letter with Brad signing it?
That's a process question
That was the
we
question
can,
for
yeah,
you. This is-
I know, but we can figure that out depending on what we want to do after we deliberate on the content of it.
But that's possible.
I'm not sure. I think we'd have to dig up some other stuff that we've had before in the past to see. But that's a Brad question, not a me question. But potentially, I think there are mechanisms for that to happen.
So it's-
Um, Todd, I saw your hand raised, and then I'll go to you, Jen. Exactly.
Oh, thank you, Libby. So Judith, thank you for your tremendous efforts. And the idea, of course, we all know that the federal government is drifting away and is hostile to any positive energy in trying to address these issues. I'm just wondering, just in a nutshell, what are the major arguments, such as they are, against this? So that when we draft our proposal, we can just meet them head on, in your opinion.
Yeah, thank you for raising that, Todd. There are 106 business lobbyists lobbying against this bill. They're everywhere. And one of the major arguments they make is that prices will go up at the supermarket. I don't think that's true. And the organization Consumer Reports has put out a memo of support saying they do not anticipate price increases when this bill becomes law. And I think it's really important to note that when you buy a product at the supermarket, only 2% of the price is for the packaging. 98% is for the product. The other thing we hear is that products might disappear from store shelves in New York. And I find that hard to believe because New York is huge. I mean, if we were like, Rhode Island, maybe, but I don't think any big company is going to give up the New York market. The third thing we hear is that the bill might result in less jobs, but I've never seen any explanation about how jobs would be lost. So I don't know if you need to raise that because it's not really clear to me. I do think it makes sense to take on the price increase argument head on. That's the major point that the opponents to the bill are making.
And what are the three things? I mean, you were referring to them in summary, the three advantages to having an effective policy to mitigate the plastics issue, if you could just identify them.
Yeah, the first is taxpayer savings. It's less waste for the city of New York to pick up, and then new revenue coming to the city. So this is a real plus for any city that wants to save money. The second beneficial argument is we need to protect our health. We're all breathing in and swallowing microplastics, and there are serious health consequences to that. And I would say the third argument is we want to see less litter on our streets. If we can reduce single-use plastic packaging and other packaging, and that litter often gets into storm drains and gets into rivers and the ocean. So we're turning our ocean into a watery landfill. So tax savings, health benefits, and water quality protection. I think those are the three big ones. I would add a few more, but those are the top three.
Thank you, Judith.
John Harris.
Yeah, I have one question for the chair and then one for the presenter.
Okay.
To the chair first, maybe I missed it. Do we have a copy of the legislation?
I don't know that we have an exact copy of the legislation. Josh,
Is there a reason why? 'Cause
the
that's
full
looking-
legislation, I don't think it's in the
I don't see
folder.
it. Well,
You can just get it off the Assembly website. It's Assembly Bill 1749A. If you go to the New York State Assembly website, that'll come up.
I sent a link in the email itself, but
Okay.
we don't have a printout of it.
And then, second
Maybe Josh.
question is just sort of excuse my ignorance on this, but when we say, reduce, there's a difference between banning plastic bags and reducing them. So I'd just like to get a practical sense of how my life would change how our lives would change on a day-to-day basis. For instance, if a delivery person comes to your house, will it be a paper bag or a plastic bag? Are we saying it just the constitution of the plastic bag changes? Or are we saying there will be no, for all practical purposes, in a lot of sectors, there will be no plastic bags? Just want to get a clarification.
Great question. I think the best way to answer that is there's just going to be over 12 years, companies will have the chance to reduce the amount of packaging that they use by 30%. So if you ever get anything that you order online, you've probably had the experience that you've purchased like a small item and it comes in like 3, 4, 5 different envelopes. They would have to reduce those envelopes by 30%. The bill covers not just packaging that you and I see when we order things or at the store, but also transportation packaging. So it's primary, secondary, tertiary packaging. So for instance, if you ever go to the back of a supermarket or a CVS, there's lots and lots of pallets. And then it's all wrapped in massive amounts of plastic shrink wrap. So if companies can reduce that, that counts toward the 30%. So this is not a very prescriptive bill. When I worked at the EPA, companies would come in a lot and say, don't tell us how to do it, just tell us what the goals are. So that's what we're doing here. Reduce by 30% over 12 years, and you as a company figure out how to get there. And then, of course, there's oversight. Reports have to be submitted to New York DEC. And then New York City will get literally millions of new dollars to fund local waste reduction and recycling programs.
One follow-up question, please.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the full range of companies and industries. So let's take two extremes. Let's take Amazon on one end, and let's take the corner store on the other end. Both will be subject to this 30% reduction?
No,
Or are we just saying New York City as a whole has to reduce it by?
No. Companies as a whole. So for instance, the corner store, they don't really have responsibilities to reduce because it just covers packaging. So if you're General Mills or Kraft Food or McDonald's, you have to reduce by 30%. And I should add that small businesses are exempt. If the business sells 5 million or less, they're exempt from the law. But the corner store, unless they're packaging products themselves, they don't have any responsibility. It's all the consumer brands that come into the store.
Okay.
Is that
last
One more
follow-up,
question,
I'm
sure.
sorry.
Absolutely.
Maybe, thank you for that clarification. Can you provide just in the legislation what the definition of packaging is? Just
Mhm.
the definition of packaging.
Yeah, it's in the bill. I can't recite it off the top of my head, but it's what you think. And
Well,
so
I'm not sure. So, can you, in layman terms, can you just tell me what
yeah,
packaging is?
sure,
'Cause
packaging
I
is
think I
not,
had a misunderstanding of what packaging was.
yeah, it's not the product. So if you buy a loaf of bread, the bread is not covered, but the plastic bag that the bread comes in is covered. That's packaging.
So there are two bags. It's the bag that the bread, after it's manufactured, it's put in. And then when I go to the store, there's a second bag or package in which the final product is put into. You're saying this only covers that first one, not the second one.
Oh, no, both transport
does.
packaging and primary packaging. Yes.
Okay, I guess that brings me back to the retail industry, but thank you. Okay.
Okay. Tom Ricardo.
Sorry about that. Two questions. One is, in the bill, I understand why, and this is more of a traditional thing. Savolysis, I've actually never pronounced this word. It's a chemistry,
Savolysis.
savolysis
Yep.
is excluded. Um, However, with some of the new discoveries with like Germany and stuff like that, would there be room, would there be room for addition for like, if it's, well, how do I word this properly? We, in Germany, especially with nylons and some non-rigid plastics, they found non-aluminum based, non-rigid plastics, they found room Sorovalsis to actually work. Would that, if something like that came to market, like the FITs, like they're driving in Germany, would you, with the bill now, it doesn't obvious, and I know why, but it doesn't say that. But would that be the expanded motion be open to like adding that if it became a prevalent technology?
Well, remember, this bill only covers packaging, so not fabric or textiles.
Oh, so it wouldn't like a canvas that would, so it wasn't, and I'm sorry, I might have misread the bill. So like a canvas that was like a plastic canvas that would be like wrapped around like a, that's not count. It's really just one-time use, more plastics. It's what it's focused on. If that's the case, I misread it.
It's packaging. So it might, if the canvas is used to contain a product, then that would be covered by the bill. So what we've done in the definition of recycling is excluded various types of chemicals recycling. And Tom, I want to emphasize that this doesn't prohibit savolysis or different types of chemical
Yeah.
recycling. It just says it doesn't count as real recycling.
Okay, and I understand that the context. So that, this is something that's kind of new. Reservolysis isn't just a buzzword coming out of Exxon. I understand that. And then and once again, I think I misunderstood when I was reading it. As it's coming in like yeah, I misread it because I had a question more of like, what about something like an Orbis Corporation where they're kind of, that's more rigid plastics anyway. Like when they're taking back, when they're doing take back programs and stuff like that, would there be opening for more like corporate encouragement for companies like Orbis Corporation? They do like the plastic containers that Amazon packaging comes in. It's all recycled plastic and stuff like that, which some of it is non-rigid. Like I misunderstood some of the definitions, so I'll retract it. I just kind of trying to bring up like there are things we're kind of better than we were 3 years ago, right? Like there are certain things, and unfortunately, some of those terms are driven too far. But I was just wondering, like in those kind of in places where we can expand recycling, would there be room to expand the definition where it made sense? I mean,
If this, I mean, again, does it really get recycled? And so it's the focus is on the packaging. And you know, we have your standard definition of mechanical recycling, you know, and this is paper, cardboard, metal, glass, plastic. So, you know, there are plastic drop-offs for like film plastic. Again, that's kind of like not the focus of the bill. The focus is on the packaging that is sold to the public. I don't know if that helps.
Okay, Athena.
Hey Judith, thank you for doing the great work out there on education advocacy and sharing your insights with us. I like the framework of like making the polluters pay essentially and to support the infrastructure within New York State to do recycling and the processing facilities. I guess my question is, how does this compare to other states? Like, does California, for example, or Oregon, like, are there precedents of this at other states, and how have they played out in terms of consumer pricing and economic impact?
So there are 7 other states that have adopted similar laws. They're known as extended producer responsibility, or EPR. 6 of those states, though, the laws are quite different. They put a fee on packaging with money going to local government, but they don't require reduction, and they don't prohibit the 13 chemicals that are prohibited in this bill. We are looking not only to reduce the volume of packaging, but reduce the toxicity. Now, California, though, their law, SB 54, it's called, does have a requirement of 25% reduction. The Glick-Harcum bill is 30% reduction, so pretty close. And all of these state laws are new enough that they haven't really taken effect. They've passed in the legislature the last 2-3 years. So we don't have consumer data on that. I will add that many countries in Europe and Canada have adopted packaging legislation laws decades ago, and we see no evidence of price increases anywhere.
Thank
Got it.
you. That's helpful context. Athena,
can
do
I
you have
have
an additional question?
Yeah, can I just follow up on that? I think what John was saying with the Amazon example, part of that is how does this cost transfer in the kind of ecosystem of all the polluters or producers? Because, you know, we're applying this law in New York, but the, you know, headquarter of the corporations that are paying it might sit elsewhere. So how much of a local impact in New York is there?
So a management structure is set up. It's called a producer responsibility organization. And it's very easy to find out how much Amazon sells in New York and how much other companies sell, because they have to pay sales tax.
Yep.
And it's not the honor system. And so the producers, and there's a definition in the bill, will be essentially sent a bill for how much they need to pay. And that number is determined by what municipalities like New York City say they need to improve recycling or do waste reduction. A good example is, I'm kind of astonished that New York City doesn't have a publicly owned material recovery facility, a MRF. They're privately owned. Maybe the city would like to build a MRF in every borough. They would need money for that. Maybe the city wants electric garbage trucks, so there's less diesel pollution. That would be funded by this. You know, when you go to the airport, there's water refill stations. Why don't we have that in bus stations and parks and train stations? So basically, the city of New York would say, here's our shopping list to get really serious about waste reduction, refill, and recycling. And then they'd have a new revenue source from these fees. And the fees are established based on what the financial needs are of local governments all over the state.
Okay, very cool. Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions? Yeah.
I was wondering for the baseline with which the reduction is happening. I'm just curious because different polluters or companies have different baselines for which they're starting with for how sustainable their operations are. So I'm just curious for the reduction, is that based on when they're all joining the organization? Is there any credit to rewarding or, not penalizing companies that already have a very strong baseline to start with?
Absolutely. We want to give credit to companies that have already taken steps. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them, but the baseline goes back 10 years. So you look at what the packaging numbers are from 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Michael Payback.
So great presentation. Would you be able to explain to me, because I read the thing and all the paperwork that we got, and it didn't stick in my head, and I saw all the people for it, and those multitudinous companies that are against the proposition, but could you explain the money aspect, why they're against it, how much it's gonna cost them, what they're gonna have to do that's going to cost them the money that they're fighting it so vehemently for?
Yeah.
Money and tobacco.
Great question. They don't object so much to having to pay the industry fees. In fact, they've gotten legislators to put in a rival bill that simply would put fee on packaging and nothing else. They mostly object to having to phase out now 13 chemicals. They say they need those chemicals in packaging. We say there are alternatives to all of those chemicals. They also don't want to do reduction. They're okay with funding recycling. But from a plastics perspective, plastic recycling rates are so low, it's only 5 to 6% nationwide, that throwing more money to plastics recycling doesn't really help us with the plastics problem. The opposition is really being led by companies that produce chemicals and fossil fuel companies. And they want to keep making more and more plastic, which is made from chemicals and fossil fuels. So we're going toe to toe with little mom and pop companies like ExxonMobil and Dow Chemical.
All right, that's helpful. All right, unless there's any additional questions about the legislation and what it will do and how it will work that will determine your support or not, I think we should open it to public comment. All right, I see one, Charles Nye. Josh, can you?
You can hear me.
No, he's got to can you make me the host?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Okay. I was wondering, I have a question and a comment. Question for the presenter is, I was wondering, is there any idea about how companies will be able to protect fragile items? As we know, with fragile items, they use sometimes the styrofoam or bubble wrap and things like that. If the packaging is reduced, will that mean some items could be more prone to being damaged when they're bounced around in FedEx trucks than UPS trucks? I was also wondering, my second question was, any thoughts to expand the bill to cut down plastics that are used in festivals and parades and things like that? Because often there's little, gifts they throw out, little bracelets and things and all that sort of things. And I've often got little things from activations, and after a while you just end up throwing them out, and it just seems like a waste. And my comment is, I just want to let the committee know, it's really good that plastic bags have been, that in the supermarkets you have the choice between paper bag or material bags. And I'm on food stamps, and I'm exempt with being on food stamps, so I'm being charged for the paper bags. But some supermarkets like Fairway have got rid of their paper bags, so the only option is a material bag, and then they charge you. And if you're on food stamps, you don't get exempt from the material bag. So I don't know what could be done about that, where a supermarket chooses to take away, that option, that exempt option, or if there's a way to have the material bags exempt for people on food stamps too. I'm very concerned about that. So that's my kind of comment / question for anyone to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. All right. Any additional members of the public? All right. Seeing none, now to get into business session. Judith, thank you so much. If you want to hang around for a minute, if you have any additional questions, that might be helpful, but I'm gonna throw it to the committee. Gail.
Support it. I think it's great. I'm bummed it was watered down a little bit, but I know that was a lot of lobbying and things like that. I would like to, I don't know if this is motion, whatever. I think we talked to Brad about what we can do to get something quick before June 4th. And then, like you mentioned, kind of do something in parallel for, I think that's June 11th.
12th, I believe.
12th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
making
So a little after. So if we can do like
the
a
second
1-2
Thursday.
Yeah, if we can do a 1-2 punch, that would be my vote.
Yeah, 11th, right?
Yeah, that'd be my goal. Also, I work in retail. Packaging is completely separate in the AUC in deciding the price for the item. I do not think that's gonna be an issue. I think it's an excuse, and I don't trust the corporations lobbying against us. So,
That is helpful context. All right.
is it motionable? Am I allowed to make it?
If everyone has comments to make, concerns, questions, specifics to add into what we would be supporting.
Okay, well, if no one does, I make a motion.
Seconded.
Okay,
Wait.
Making a
Can I say
motion.
something?
Todd would like to make a comment.
Wait, I didn't hear what she said, so.
She made a motion, but everyone has to be allowed to speak before anyone makes a motion
First of all, did she make a
at
motion?
the committee level. Yeah.
Yes, so no. What did she make a motion?
Well, I stopped because Todd has.
Todd has something to
but
say
I
first.
can-
So Todd,
So-
you're recognized.
Thank you, Libby. So I am supportive of a motion in favor of this effort. I think that any motion should call attention to the support from our fellow community board members. I couldn't hear or didn't catch the number of other community boards that came out with resolutions in support of the efforts. The resolution should call attention to the arguments pro and con, with mentions of the arguments on both sides, but that, the problems of industry and the public good in our committee's conception, unless people feel otherwise, is that we should take a strong stand and try to do this to move the policy in a good direction. I was particularly, I know something about the issue of plastics. I used to serve as the plastics and edits editor for Plastic Technologies magazine 30 years ago. And I used to go to the meetings and, hear all these stories of horror off the record about a lot of these plastic additives that were being used. And so I have an opinion about this, but certainly we should be very matter of fact, show that we've seriously weighed the issues and, put something together that shows that we've thought about it and persuade our brethren at full board. And I wouldn't underestimate the burden. A lot of people, the burden, which I think Judith mentioned, a lot of the arguments against this, it's going to lead to higher prices. And the other things that Judith mentioned, those have to be faced head on, right? If we're going to make this effective.
All right. Thank you, Todd. John Harris.
Yeah, just sort of follow up on what Todd was saying.
Yeah. Some of it to go into a resolution. Yeah.
If we approve it, I think we have to have some language that says we are sort of accepting the statements that, about the financial impact. I mean, I don't. If, I realize now this is the same bill I've been following in the press. And I've seen different arguments and different analysis from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
So if they're, if the claims are that they're stating as facts, that this is the financial and economic impact, I'd like to just say that I'm voting for it, accepting at face value what they're claiming to be the case.
Yeah, that given these things are true.
Yeah, given.
Like as a whereas clause to make sure that
Right.
it's included, that the
Right.
impact
Because I'm not-
is,
I've seen counter arguments that they're not true.
that it's not really
Yeah,
the
yeah.
200,
Right.
420 to 50, 450 million.
Right, and also the impact on small businesses. I mean, I understand their exclusions or what have you. But that's an issue. And also, I believe, if I'm correct, that this the same bill, the government is excluded from this process
Okay.
completely.
So acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think we have to acknowledge that, which
Do you
I'm
have
not sure I
language?
understand why. No, I don't have.
Do you have like a recommendation for the small business language, just so that we can,
No, it's just, it's all in that same clause. They're making statements that it won't impact small business.
okay, so
That
just
the-
one
that
whereas.
The financials of this, that the economics is that. And I just want to be clear that I'm voting based on
What has been presented to
what
us
has
as
been
being
presented
the-
to us,
Okay,
because someone could come back and say, no.
here's a
you know,
counter,
Here's a.
get
here's
different
Halifax,
information.
Right?
Okay,
So I'm accepting at face value everything they're saying. There won't be a burden on small business. That it doesn't matter that the government is not included in this. That, you know, so forth and so on. So it's just a broad clause.
Okay.
That makes me feel comfortable.
Okay.
Voting for it.
Tom Ricardo.
I'm just I understand what it's trying to do. I'm confused. I mean, I understand why they're going to community boards, but I don't understand how it aligns to what the mission of the community board is. And what I would say is, it's like, look, this is a state issue, and yeah, once again, personally, yeah, I can totally understand where it's going from, but I don't get how this is what we're trying to do as a community board. And one of the things that makes me hesitant to jump on and say, like, yeah, is like, why are they coming to this with this when there's other things we can't have from the state and even local level come to us and kind of ask for it? Like, what are we doing other than putting a stamp on it? And once again, that's fine, and maybe it's a main board thing. I'm just kind of curious why they're coming to the community boards outside to get approval, which once again is fine. I'm not against the motion. I'm just I don't understand how this is remiss of the community board, and maybe that's what I'm trying to do.
So that's a little bit of a process question, it sounds like. So some of what community boards do.
Process, not questioning the actual. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So some of that, I think we can offline about a little bit more as far as what the process of how things come to committee and what the directionality of that is of agenda setting. Lots of great research on that in general, but I think that in this instance, part of what we do, Deborah Gluck represents part of Community Board 5 in addition to being a state legislator. So it's also one of our local electeds for CB5, which is part of one of the many things that we see locally at the city level. We don't work as frequently at the state level, but we also do. So that's one of the reasons why, hearing from local residents of how we feel about it. I also think that locally, just for my own opinion to jump in here, now that we've landed mostly on our conversation, I feel like I can add that, is that I've spoken to some of the parks on the waste stream and how packaging works, and it ends up creating more problems for garbage collection and sanitation issues. So you end up with mostly empty garbage bags, and it creates this garbage problem, the garbage slick that we've heard so much about. They have some waste stream studies. So I also think just this impacts broader things in addition to health matters, but specifically for New York City, there is an impact specifically. All right, Todd.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So I just want to add my support to what Libby said and try to answer Tom's question. So traditionally, the role of the community board, it's as a branch of government that is closest to the people. And in our case, our concern is the parks and public spaces. So
And environment.
and parks, public spaces, and environment. So, as Libby said so eloquently, we all know the problems of the refuse and the overwhelming amount of garbage bags that are put out on the streets, in our parks, on the sidewalks, and that's directly relevant to what we do. The other thing, which I would say, this is just my own opinion, is that I would, if you read this book, or I've read many books about the problems of plastics and the influence of the lobbyists. Thank heavens, there's nobody coming to grease our palms as politicians of the community board telling us how to vote, right? So whatever small influence we have with our advisory opinions, even if we don't have any staff, but we all have the ability to read books like this and to educate ourselves in a way that's independent of the lobbying information and the money that's being targeted at our elected representatives. So I would say, to the extent that we exist, it's relevant for us to comment on these issues.
All right, thank you, Todd. Okay. Thomas and Tom, and then I want to go to people we haven't heard from as we move in a direction. Yeah. Yeah, but just hang on a second. Tom.
Me, right?
Yes.
The only thing what you said, Todd, is we have lobbyists on the community board. So I don't think we can say it's our mission to avoid lobbyists. We have lobbyists as members. There's people that work for lobbying bodies as members, right? Like that is a remit. Like I wouldn't say that's part of our remit. I think more of my question is, and not to say like this is bad, this is good, but like what are we choosing to kind of come up like? What's the standard we choose to support registration would be my question. That more and maybe and I think Libby's right. It's probably more of an offline question because I was just kind of like, oh, like it's just we don't usually support state assembly things. We do city things. Hey, is this if this is remiss? This is good, but should we be looking out for more? That's my question. But I wouldn't turn around and say that we're remiss of lobbyists. Like there's people here that work for lobbies, which isn't a bad thing. There's good lobbies and bad lobbies and all that.
Tom, I think we should have a conversation about this offline and make sure that anything that, unless you
Agreed.
want it to be language in our resolution, I just want to make the conversation really focused on whereas clauses and results.
Yeah,
Andy has one more question for our presenter, though, I think.
A related question to the whereas clause, in the draft resolution for community boards, it says, whereas New York City estimates the annual cost of disposal is 420 to 450 million. I just want to confirm when it says New York City estimates, what does that mean? Is the estimate from the city's analysis? Is that from Beyond Plastics analysis, and just clarifying that so we have the right information starting point?
What's the number? I didn't hear you.
It says, whereas New York City estimates the annual cost of disposal of our waste streams is 420 to 450 million annually, which provides yada yada.
Yeah, that's low. That's not a Beyond Plastics number, but I can tell you that according to the New York City Comptroller's Office, and they're relying on numbers from New York City Department of Sanitation, just to export solid waste from New York City out to facilities outside of the city, that's about 480 million a year.
Got it. Is a draft resolution from Beyond Plastics?
No, I think the draft resolution is what we got from a recommendation from the Assembly Member's office.
Okay.
So I would also just suggest that we can use that as a little bit of a template, but add in our own stuff. I think John is gonna be drafting our letter on this. Well, our resolution and potentially a letter, depending on what we were able to do within a certain timeline, if that is what we choose to do. My recommendation would be to add in a little bit more of like the citations of numbers that I think we all want, and a little bit digging in a little bit on what's been presented tonight and just making it a little bit more specific to this outline. But otherwise, how are people feeling about a resolution? I'm hearing generally supportive with the acknowledgement of the numbers that are laid out. We take these to be accurate as such. Maybe including a little bit on health that was presented tonight. Additional things to include.
I guess the catch-all phrase would be, you know, the statements they're making about the economic and environmental impact.
We take these
We take these,
to be accurate information,
right,
and in
accurate
light of this
representation.
information.
yeah,
Okay,
I think that's the catch-all.
does anyone have any issues voting that way? If that is the case, then do I have a
I
motion?
make a motion.
Seconded.
Great, let's take it to a vote.
Charles Baker,
Yes.
John Klein, I'm a yes. Tina Cow,
Yes.
John Harris,
Yes,
Michael Kayback.
Yeah.
Bill Kelly,
Yes.
Chris Nazaro,
Yes, this was true.
Christopher Nazaro, my apologies. Alex Ricardo,
Yes.
Todd Shapiro,
Yes.
and Mindy Yang.
Yes.
All right, it's 10 yeses and no. Anything else?
Great. Thank you so much, Judith, for coming, and presenting to us and bringing us what I think might be our first environmental standalone resolution, which is exciting.
I just want to say thank you, and also your questions were fantastic, and I wish every deliberative body was as comprehensive and responsible as all of you were in your discussions and questions. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everyone.
much.
Take
Have a
care.
great night.
You too.
All right. Moving onward, we have an activation presentation from IDECO. So this is for a Nike event in Bryant Park. It's just a reminder to everyone, we are currently operating from our old parks matrix from the prior task force that I think was revisited in 2013, as you all know, and as we're about to hear from at our next topic, we're going to hear an update from the current commercial task force. However, until that point, we're going to use our current existing precedent as we evaluate this. I believe everyone was shared on the questionnaire. And with that, I believe we have Amir and Kelly to support, but Amir is here to present on behalf of Nike, I believe.
That's correct. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everybody again. That was an interesting conversation about environment. I wasn't aware of any of that. Very enlightening. Here, I'm actually going to share my screen if possible. Let's see. Let me know if you see my screen. Yes. Okay, great. So I'm here tonight to present Estadio Nike, the TOMA finals, set to take place in Bryant Park from June 25th to June 27th of this year. So the finals will, like as I mentioned, will take place from the 25th to 27th at Bryant Park to serve as the Borough Finals tournament and celebrating the world's favorite sport during the World Cup window. The event will transform the park into an immersive street soccer and cultural experience featuring live competition, programming, community engagement, all in the heart of Manhattan. Activations include a soccer stadium for gameplay, a night market with concessions and local vendors, and musical performances. This event celebrates youth leagues, and while we can only fit a limited number of people in the stadium, there will be screens outside that will make it accessible for everyone to be able to watch the matches that are taking place inside. So some dates to mark out, June 20th to June 24th for load in. I'll show site plans of how this is going to sit in the park, so you can have an idea of what areas this will occupy. Important to note that the full park that the park outside of the area that we'll be working in will be open to the public and operations as always during those times. Our load in is from June 20th to 24th. As I noted, our event dates are from the 25th to 27th. And then we load out from the 28th to July 2nd, and we'll be out by 7 a.m. on the 2nd. So, in the morning, once people are getting ready to get back into the park, it'll be open for business. Event times, 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. Daily, with the night market extending slightly later to 11 p.m. Amplified sound would be during the times of the event as well, from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. With sound checks taking place from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. On event days. The estimated attendance is about 1,000 people within the stadium, and then obviously much larger numbers within the park in general. But obviously it's a well-used, well-liked park that has many people utilizing it daily, and we hope to further and have this be an enhancement for everybody's daily experience. Ticketing, it's a free ticket. It is open to the public. We're doing free tickets just so that we can manage the attendance and be able to cap and have an understanding of how many people we have in the stadium area by itself. But it is free. It will be made available via Nike online channels for people to be able to redeem tickets. Food and beverage, we're working with Hester Street and Stout to bring food and beverage to the park for the night as part of the night market for the event. So think like Charles Pan Fried Chicken, Epinology, Taranga, other New York-based food purveyors. We're working through the details of the specific food purveyors that are going to be part of the event. But these are the ones that we've been talking about right now, and hoping to solidify some additional. Generators not needed. The park has ample power to be able to provide power for all the equipment that we will be utilizing. And there will be some merchandise sales via the vendors that are in the night market. So think t-shirts, shorts, shoes, sweatshirts, things along those lines. Nike partners will comprise the night market. We've done events like this in the past. These are local vendors that are tied into like the street soccer culture in general in New York City, and have close ties to the communities here in New York. And Nike likes to partner with these kinds of things in every city we do this in. I should note that we've done this in Miami and LA, and they're bringing it to New York for this year. And it's been a pretty great success in the other cities that it's been in. People have really enjoyed it. And it's been a similar kind of setup and plan for in those cities as well. This is a layout of what we're looking to do in the park. As you can see, the stadium structure will sit on the eastern side of the lawn. This is the existing, if you can see my cursor, this is the existing stage that lives in Bryant Park during the summertime. And we'll be setting up a handful of vendors along the perimeter here as the night market, and it'd be similar. I'll show some renders of what these stalls are going to look like. But this is basically the idea. And then we have some additional vendors here on the eastern terrace as well. So just some renders of the structure here. So this is facing east, what would be essentially the main entry to the park. You see the stadium structure with seating, lighting, and then the screens that are kind of flanking each side of the structure. This is a render of the interior of the space. We have screens on the interior as well for people to see. It's kind of like the stage DJ booth area here, and the whole thing is enclosed with like a fencing to kind of capitalize to contain the gameplay, I should say. It's a render of one of what the vendor stalls will likely look like. Obviously, there will be some variation to this, but this is kind of a good example of what they'll look like. They're gonna, for the most part, will be retrofitted containers that will open up and have the opportunity to, for the vendors to display their wares. There's another look at another option as well for the night market. So for our security plan, as you can see, we're starting June 1st and kind of ramping up as we go towards the event day. So 6 guards, 8 guards, 10 guards, 12 guards as we go from the first day of load in through to the event start. As when the event starts up, we're going to have approximately 80 guards throughout the park through the course of the event hours. Overnight hours scales down to about 35, and then the same ramp down as we load out the event from the park as the elements reduced, so will the number of guards that we employ in the park. Quick sanitation plan as well. We have dedicated sanitation team that job will be solely to make sure that we keep our area and the surrounding park clean. So we have 10 staffers for each day of the event, continuous trash pickup and site cleaning throughout the event operating hours, as well as the overnight hours, to just ensure that any load in, load out, anything that we're bringing in, we're going to keep clean and take the trash out ourselves. We'll have X-frame trash stands, which is what's preferred by the city, so it's not something contained that you can't see in for security purpose. Recycling receptacles will be available as well. Waste and recyclables will be consolidated at a designated collection area and carted away by a private carter. And then a final post-event cleanup sweep will take place daily to make sure that the park is returned to a clean condition. And basically, once we're done, we leave the area as we found it, if not better. Obviously, Bryant Park is a very well-maintained park, so we'll make sure to return that in the same level of cleanliness that we receive it, which is generally pretty spick and span. So that is the main presentation. Obviously here to field any questions.
Thank you so much. I just have a couple. I see Kelly is here. I just wanted to ask, we know that with the public-private partnership, a lot of these events end up going towards supporting the non-paid activities, the normal, what would otherwise be parks programming in the parks. And I was wondering, though it's not covered, and we know that it's usually a range that we discuss, how much of a contribution, it says that it's like to be determined, but is this a significant contribution to that annual budgeting for those like the regular programming in the park?
I can confirm that this is an incredibly high contribution. It is the highest that I personally have seen at the park. So we're very excited to have them on site.
And then just as a refresher, since we've had a little bit of a break from our activations and normally seeing you, though we've seen our annual programming, just to confirm, there weren't any marketing activations between January to now, or were there one or two?
We have one more coming up. It is an Instax activation that's already been previously approved by this committee. They're returning at the beginning of June, but otherwise this Nike event is the only major event that's taking place in the park. Yes, that's an activation.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess I had one more question. Will any image and likeness be captured during this and used for advertising? And if so, will you sign a release? Will you make sure that everyone signs a release so their image and likeness can be distributed in a commercial way if such an activity were to occur?
Yeah, I mean, there will likely be filming in the park of the game plan, the various activities that are taking place. We will be certain to have signage placed throughout, noting that filming is taking place. And if there's any of that content is being used for commercial purpose and somebody's likeness is very clear in the recording, that we'll make sure to have the appropriate releases. Nike's pretty uptight about this kind of stuff and making sure that they're legally tight on just about everything we do. So yeah, we'll definitely make sure that that's the case as well.
Right. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And with that, questions. Michael Kabak.
Hi, nice presentation.
Thank you.
Could you possibly turn back to the diagram? I have some questions with regard to the diagram of the park with the space that's taken up that says asset. Thank you. First, I want to ask, I must be mistaken here. Are we talking about Saturday, June 20th through July 2nd? That would be what, 12 days?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
And and during that time, by looking at this, am I correct in assuming that about 2/3 of the lawn space will be taken up? I know you're gonna make it real nice when you're done. For 12 days of the lawn space will be taken up from dawn till dusk by your stadium. Is that correct too?
Yes, in terms of the ratio, I don't have the exact number, but that probably
Yes,
sounds about right. But
yes, it will be taken up?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did you say yes, it will be taken up? 12 days, 2/3 of the lawn space will be taken up?
I can't confirm the ratio, but yes, it would be 12 days that we're in the park.
Okay, and as a daily park goer, somebody who enjoys the lawn, you can imagine how I feel about this, especially once this is struck. That lawn's gonna have to be rehabilitated, and it won't be overnight. That'll be another week that they will have this place cordoned off.
I would actually love to speak to
Am
that.
I right on that, Kelly?
I would love to speak to that if I could.
Yeah, Kelly, if you want to answer that.
And I'll finish my question when you're done.
Yeah, your lawn maintenance, I know, is very much an issue, so.
No, so we're actually really excited. We have a great opportunity this summer to try out a new type of grass. So actually, once this activation loads out, we will be quickly replacing the lawn and it will be open very shortly after the fact. We're trying out.
Definition quickly and very shortly. I don't understand the definition in terms of days.
I can double check with my horticulture team, but I do believe it should be ready for public in about 2 to 3 days.
3 days, 2 days. Excellent. So we're talking 15 days of non-use of the lawn. Am I correct?
Part of the lawn.
So the lawn is actually going to be partitioned off during their load-in period. So the other half of the lawn that's closest to the stage, that area of the lawn will remain open for the majority of their load-in. And then once the event is live, to Amir's point, the main entrance of that stadium is actually on the lawn. So folks will be entering via the lawn.
Yeah, the remainder of the lawn and the rest of the park is fully available for use before, during, and after.
This is really great. You're talking to somebody who's been using this park for over 50 years, 50. And I remember the closest thing to this would be the annual fashion show that started out as a tiny little tent that morphed to you couldn't even get into the place. That's how crowded it was. And it just bothers me being a daily park user, daily, 4 or 5 days a week, that I'm not going to be able during the peak season, June 20th to July 2nd to be used to walk on that lawn, to most of that lawn. That just hurts me in a great way. I just wanna, now I'm all for you guys making money off of this. I know you're gonna make a ton of money. I heard you say you never saw this much money being billed at one time from Nike, and I think that's great. And I think soccer is great, but I also think that you have to give a little more attention to the people who use this park on a daily basis and love it and have loved it for eons, decades. That's the end of my question.
So is the question just confirming the amount of time
Yeah.
that would be usable? Great. Tom Ricardo, I saw that you had a question.
Yeah, I have two.
Hey, Tom.
One is so when you did this in Miami, you did this in Watson Island, right? And then Venice, it was Venice Beach in LA, the site.
That sounds correct. We didn't produce the other two locations, but I believe that is correct. Yes.
So I guess my question is why Bryant Park? Why not like East River Park or something near the water where there's more room for activities? Like I'm just kind of curious why you're going kind of a place where it's already in you. I know we talked about the grass, but there's the whole they turned down the ring and now we're covering the grass for another 2 weeks in the main growing season. Like, why was Bryant Park the choice? That's the first question. I have a second question after that.
Certainly. I mean, I guess I don't need to sing the praises of Bryant Park to this group. I mean, obviously it's the most iconic, one of the most iconic parks in the city. And this event is likely going to be the most grand of the events that are taking place during the World Cup window in New York City. And the feeling was that this would be the best place to host it and showcase New York City in the best way during this time when it's on a world stage.
And my second question is for Bryant Park. Are you guys planning what's the plan? That's Pride weekend, and that's normally when the Women's March comes out that Saturday. What's the plan there? Are you telling Pride go away? Because this is going to be a lot of people and you're saying a Saturday night, are you not going to do the traditional march? Do they know that? Because they're advertising they're coming out from Bryant Park like they usually do.
Typically, we don't really participate in Pride or anything like that. I'm not sure what you're referring.
Okay.
All right. I think part of the march you're referring to is intentionally not coordinated by design, just historically, Tom. Todd.
Yeah.
Good evening, Todd.
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so apropos of Mike's comments, this is probably, given our past history of comment, much longer than we would like as a park committee, given our concern in peak season of giving up the use of the lawn and a lot of the park. However, as you've said, we have to weigh that against.
Todd, is it a question? Is it a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we in questions or comments?
We're still in questions about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so
details.
I do have a question. I'll come back to my comment later.
Fire away.
So my question is there anything that can be done to increase the setup time and the dismantling time? Because as Mike mentioned, the long length that it's going to take a substantial portion of that lawn out of service is, something that is of concern to us. Is there anything that can be done about that?
That's a great question, Todd. And yes, we have actually whittled this down from where it was originally. So we had worked with Kelly and her team at the park to really drill down and analyze on what it takes to load this in. This is a substantial structure. We also do want to make sure that we are being safe while we load in and install it, as well as being cognizant of the noise that we're making overnight and things like that. So to that point, we have this is the reduced timetable because we realized and understood that same concern and heard the park's request to reduce that down as much as possible.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Additional questions, Gail?
Sorry, so this is ending July 2nd, and you said it would take 2 to 3 days for the lawn to be ready. Are you anticipating the lawn is gonna be ready and open for July 4th?
We are.
Okay, great.
250th. Chris.
Christopher, Christopher, please. All right, so my first question is about the crowding and the overspill. We know that the stadium holds 1,000 people. What are estimates for the number of people who'll be standing around outside the stadium? And what are you gonna do with that extra like those extra people who show up?
So we have a ticketing system for the people to get into the stadium. So hopefully everybody who wants to come is looking to reserve a ticket. Obviously, if there is a opportunity, if people want to come and watch from the exterior, we do have screens there. We can do an analysis of the park to figure out how much extra space there is and how many people we can accommodate there. I would comfortably say that we could probably have another, I don't know, easily about 300 additional people that can stand outside and watch on the screens comfortably within the park.
Just it quickly occurred to me, there's usually a bar at that area of the park, on the lawn, the north, near towards the bathroom. What is that? The north east corner. Is the park still selling alcohol while this is going on?
I'm not sure which, I think you may be referring to the Bryant Park Grill. So that's a separate entity.
No, Mike will tell you.
I do have a bar set up.
Not the grill. That little tent that you set up at the foot of the stairs, as you're coming down the stairs on the right-hand side, there's a wicker tent that every once in a while appears.
So we do have a vendor who does sell beer and wine during our larger events. That is Stout. We work with them year round. Amir and team are working with Stout for concessions. So I'll let Amir jump in on that.
Yeah, that's correct. So we will be working with the existing purveyor in the park to extend food and beverage service to our event as well, and then to anybody who's in the park too.
Beverage includes alcohol.
Yes, which I understand is already exists in the park.
This event is for teenagers.
The event is for teenagers as well. I mean, the gameplay is teenagers, but obviously the guests and clientele that are going to be there will be of all ages. We will have a ID policy, wristbands, and check at entry as well as at the points of sale to ensure that there's no sales of alcohol to anybody who's underage.
And what are the medical and emergency plans that are in place?
Yeah, great question. So we have a medical team, Paradox or the like, that will be there at all times during the event hours. Obviously, one, to take care of the gameplay, the players who are playing, as well as making sure that anybody who's going to the event has medical attention if needed as well. And then, of course, we're coordinating with the NYPD and FDNY for any emergency response in case there's a larger issue that needs to be addressed. And we will also have ambulance on site as well for any emergency that we can handle on behalf of the city if there's any, so we don't tap into city resources for our event.
Okay, and this shouldn't be the 28th question, but nor should I have been left to this late in the game. Could you go over the entirety of your ADA accommodations plans? How people who don't have have mobility issues might access this space or move in and out of it or around it, given how large it is. So I think the ADA plans should be much more upfront, and like number one, they should be in the application packet fully outlined. And number two, they should be given to us in the slideshow, not as a question like I'm doing now, nor should it have to wait until some of our more eagle-eyed residents ask the question. So please walk us through the ADA.
Yeah, so if you, hold on, let me share my screen again. Oops. So we will have lifts and ramps that are on the exterior to allow access for people into the arena. And then we have space that's going to be adjacent to the seating area, like right on the ground level for people who have ADA requirements. So we have, fair point. We'll definitely make sure that that's part of the presentation. Can't argue with making sure that that's a little bit more front facing. But rest assured that Nike is very conscious of that as well as us. And we're making sure that we have the accommodations available for anybody who might need it. I believe as part of the FAQs for the event, there will be an opportunity for people to reach out for accommodations ahead of time, which will make sure that we have address for anybody who reaches out as well.
Okay, also, again, certainly not as an afterthought, but as part of that, people who have hearing impairments or are blind.
That's a good question. Let me find out for you.
What's going on? What's happening?
It's soccer. It's all soccer. They're playing soccer.
Yeah, it's street soccer is the if I heard correctly, like what are they playing? It's a street soccer, so it's kind of like a it's not the pitch isn't grass, it's kind of like a if you think of like a light grit sandpaper, if you will. So it's kind of like a kind of like concrete gritty kind of surface that they're playing on.
And it's not teams, right? I believe it's like a couple, it's smaller groups or one-on-one.
It's teams. It's I believe it's 5-on-5s and 7-on-7.
It's a big team.
Athena.
Hi, Athena.
Hi, this is probably more of a question for Brian Park. I get why Nike want to do this. I get like, World Cup and everything. But if an event takes 15 days of like complete or partial use of the park that people normally that enjoy the park couldn't use it the same way they do with this event, what does the public get from this? Like for the additional funding that you receive from this event, which sounds like it's in the millions, like does that mean there will be fewer activations for the rest of the year and the public gets the open park days back? Or does it mean there's maintenance going on? Does it mean it's going into, the conservancy's people's bonuses? Like how is this like, how is the math working here?
So I can't speak to specific P&L of the entire company, but I can speak to where this funding goes. And I can tell you that 100% of this funding goes 100% back into the physical park. So it goes into our sanitation staff, it goes into replantings every year, it goes into us producing programming that is free and open to the public. And to answer your other question, are there going to be less activations in the park because of this? That answer is yes. Like I mentioned, we have one other event that's taking place at the beginning of June. It's a small event that's already been pre-approved by this committee. So at this time, we're not expecting any additional commercial events to take place between now and the end of the World Cup. This is it.
What about for the rest of the year?
Yeah. The rest of the year, I'm unsure at this time. Those inquiries come in, they're one-offs. We review each of them individually. We say no more than we say yes. And I do believe that a few other members of my team have come before this committee and shared past comps of how many activations we've done in the park each season, and it's always been consistent. So this will actually be less than those seasons.
Thanks, Kelly. I have a question for you actually, since everyone's asked questions at least once. What type of grass are you doing on the lawn and why is it different? Sorry, I have to ask. I'm a dirt, plants, trees girl, so I gotta ask.
No, I will do my best to not mess this up for our horticulture team because I know they're very excited about it. We have a new head of horticulture. He's been doing a pretty extensive research on grass and plantings. And I guess the grass that we typically use is it either is or is not a summer grass. And this season, what we're doing is we're replacing the full lawn after this event finishes up. It will be replaced very quickly, like I mentioned, and then it will be a different type of grass. I believe it's the same that they use for NFL stadiums. That is supposed to be better in the summer months. It will root quickly. It will stay nicer for longer. And once we try this, it's not something the park's ever done. We've never replaced the lawn mid-season. So it's as you can imagine, a pretty big undertaking. I think they're really looking forward to testing that out and seeing how that works so that perhaps in the future we can do that each season so that the lawn stays nice longer.
Yeah, I know there's like a lawn protection plan for how much lawns in general and parks need to stay closed in order so the grass can survive at any point. So, but all about different types and seeds. Christopher.
All right, just two final questions for me.
Thank you, Polly.
For thinking about this. First one is the sound. Can you describe the soundscape, the amount of speakers and where they'll be placed?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I know I put that as TBD in the questionnaire because I don't have the full array of what the audio is going to be yet. It's still in the process of being designed. However, I do know that we have been speaking extensively about making sure that the sound is designed in a way that it angles into the stadium as much as possible, and making sure that the bleed is as minimal as possible. I know that obviously this will be heard when you're in the park, but we are working to design this in a way that would be as minimally invasive as possible.
Are the televisions out? This is not my second question. The televisions outside for people to watch, those have sound?
The sound, I mean, you'll be able to hear to a degree what's the announcement from the stadium. So there's not going to be any additional for that, but you'll be able to hear it.
Okay, and then my last question is for Bryant Park. This is this kind of thing that we always kind of beat around the bush about. What is the dollar amount? And can you give us well, this is kind of two-part question. What is the dollar amount, number one? And can you give us a firm promise that there will be no other commercial activation from now until winter extravaganza?
No to both.
No to both. That does help.
Well, I'll say this. It is a proprietary contract between two private entities on this, so it is not necessarily public information, at least in terms of the contract. Obviously, the park can speak to the remainder, but in terms of the contract itself.
But significant is the.
If you'd like to have a conversation offline, where I'm more than happy to do that with my larger team, but at this time, I will not be sharing that information.
It's substantial.
Great. Yes.
As it should be.
John Harris.
And to follow up on Christopher's question,
How you doing, Joe?
Will this event enable you to meet or exceed your financial objectives for the year? And if the answer is it will enable you to exceed your financial objectives for the year, what impact will that have on your judgment about future events?
So as I mentioned to Athena, I truly can't speak to the company P&L. That's just not in my purview. But I do know that the funds from these events go directly into the park. Whether or not it is exceeding goals or not is not for me to say. But I think our information is public knowledge. You're welcome to take a look at our tax documents online. And that's it.
Who can say? If it's not for you to say, who can say?
I'm happy to chat with my larger team about it.
When you say your larger team, you mean people can you elaborate on what that means, please?
I mean, the team that I work with at Bryant Park.
Okay.
The larger events team, at the org. Who have come to present at prior meetings. Right, yeah. I mean, I think everyone has come from Bryant Park, who's part of your team, probably at all levels. At some point, but it sounds like.
So all that information is technically contained elsewhere and not within.
And then also very publicly in the tax documents, so,
Yeah, but that's after the fact.
yeah, it's not in advance of it. But you did say at the beginning that it's a significant contribution to the maintenance of the park, and it's the largest that you've seen in your time, so.
Yeah, but-
Significant.
Okay, I know this is question. I don't know how you can say all that and not know the answer to my
actual-
question.
Yeah,
It makes no sense, but anyway, go ahead.
additional questions about Michael Kavak.
Yeah, I have another question. Just, will the piano and other non-lawn events, daily events be, will they continue? Will they be able to kids play and the carousel and all that other periphery stuff around the lawn? I assume,
The general.
I'm hoping you say yes, that those events, those art shows, that will continue?
Yes, carousel will be operating as normal, reading room will be operating as normal.
Just one more quickly. You say that you're putting down new sod on the entire lawn.
Mhm.
I get that, so it matches the whole way, and that's gonna be done in 2 days?
Gonna be done very quickly, yes. I can get you the specifics on it. I apologize. I am not on the horticulture team. I have never kept a plant alive in my life. But I can definitely get you the details if you're curious. I'm happy to share that.
Okay, and is any of the monies that Nike is paying for this dependent on how much money they make from their sales of merchandise and stuff, or is that different?
No, it's not contingent. It's a fee that's been negotiated with the park.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And with that, seeing no additional questions from committee members, I will open it up for comment from the public. Oh, Todd, did you have a question? Todd, you're muted.
No comment if we're in comments.
Okay, we're in public comment. We'll come back to the committee in a minute. Charles Nye.
Charles.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I have some questions, but I do want to start with thanking the community board member who brought up ADA. I'm really pleased about that, and I'm happy to hear Amir has outlined a specific area for people with disabilities. I'm a blind resident of the district. I'm just wondering, in the past, the 34th Street Partnership has been really helpful with providing me with some assistance to some events, as I don't always have assistance all the time as someone who lives on their own. I was just wondering, for this event, if there's going to be any ambassadors from Nike or Bryant Park who could help guide me through the event, like through the market in that area. I was also wondering if there's going to be any water stations that are for free, or and hopefully public restrooms. And I wanted to finally end with, and I hope, Amir, please forgive me for this. Hopefully you won't think this is too cheeky to ask, but I'm always a big believer, if you don't ask, you don't get. But in the spirit of this historical event, and with Nike putting on this event, there's 2 New York City rec centers outside of the district, and they're very old buildings with very old lockers and things like that. If Nike had any extra funds of goodwill, I was just wondering if it's possible, if they wouldn't mind, since they're so sports focused, if maybe they could consider some charitable consideration of maybe giving some funds towards those 2 rec centers, as unfortunately in the city, the Parks Department gets the least funding. So I just, again, I hope you don't mind me for asking. All right, thank you.
Definitely not. And as the kids say, you have to shoot your shot, right? I totally get it. Yes, I know that Nike annually does spend a significant amount of dollars on refurbishments of parks around the city. I can ask them. I can't guarantee anything at this point. However, if it's possible to share the 2 rec centers that you're referring to, I can send it to my Nike clients and see if that's something that they might be interested in. Never hurts to ask, to your point, and I'm happy to do so. And there was a couple other questions that you'd had in there that I want to make sure I address. Restrooms, yes, we are going to have restrooms available. Obviously, the restrooms that exist at the park, and then we're going to have additional restrooms on 40th Street that are going to be available for people to use. Since we do understand we're potentially bringing an additional number of people to the park. And to answer your question about ambassadors for people with disabilities, whether it's blindness or deafness, I will ask, and I have to imagine that they do have a plan in place for that. And my apologies for not having that information at my fingertips tonight. But I will find out, and I will share with the community board what our plans are for that, and make sure that it gets back to you.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for those questions.
All right. Any additional comments from the public? All right, not seeing any. I will now take it into business session. Only members of the committee are allowed to speak. Please address all your comments to the chair so we can avoid crosstalk. Kelly and Amir, if you want to stick around, because we might have some additional questions, that would be really helpful. Thank you so much for presenting and answering a bunch of our questions, including about grass types. And with that, Tom Ricardo, you've got floor to begin our discussion. And as a reminder, we are reviewing we're reviewing this with our current matrix. The task force, which we will see as our next item and an update, might have a suggestion to revise our matrix. But as of right now, this is what we have. This is our precedent. So
What are we in now?
we're in comments and committee discussion for a potential action on reviewing their application. And we are using our own precedent. The task force is going to be reviewing the matrix. Maybe, I don't know. We haven't heard the report yet. That might be a recommendation that is coming. But I encourage everyone to use the information from what we have currently until we wait for all of the results to come in from our hard data and surveys and all of that stuff. All right, with that, Tom.
Yeah, I'm gonna start off with, as someone that's defended Bryant Park, I am incredibly disappointed with what I heard today. And when we're looking at the evaluation matrix, number 2 is timing. And this one's to be a 1 or a -1 in terms of timing. I would urge Nike or the group looking at Nike, just search June 27th, Bryant Park. And the fact that Bryant Park's trying to act like they don't know what happens for the last 32 years at Bryant Park on that Saturday, every weekend. I am sorry. I've defended you. I like the park. I like the amenities my child has. But that, I mean, come on. We know what disaster you're about to brew. And for you to say straight face, oh, I have no clue. I'm sorry.
Tom,
no,
please
Libby.
Please
Libby, I'm
address
allowed
all
my
your
comment.
comments to the chair. Tom, please address
Sure.
all your comments to the chair.
And I, in no way did I said for them to say that was not a comment towards someone. That is literally a comment towards you. For them to say that, for someone to say that they straight face that they don't know what's happening and how this could be a potential powder keg of an issue. I don't know what to say. Like, that is a huge problem that, like, I'm texting. I'll be honest. I saw this. I texted a friend that works at One Penn Station who used to work as a community affairs officer for the gay and lesbian community. He's like, oh, that's going to be a complete and utter disaster. He goes, I can't wait to have to work the weekend after to deal with the problems. That's, I would urge at least some reach out to the groups. I understand they don't get permits. They never did. It's their thing. But I do think that this is a problematic situation which could cause not only local problems, but because of the atmosphere, be sensationalized into national problems. And it might not be something that people want to stand into. And I don't think any amount of money should have risk mitigation of looking at this and going, geez, this might not be the time and place for this. And if it is, we need to do special accommodations because we know what's going to happen. I have a 3-year-old. I can see him doing things, Chair. And I don't go, well, he shouldn't touch the socket. I shouldn't get that fork out of his hand. Like, we know what's going to happen. We know what's happened for the last 30 years, some years. I just feel like this is going to be something that could potentially be a very bad situation. And once again, I don't understand why Bryant Park. I just don't. The other places that have had this traditionally been waterfront places with more access and more space. I don't understand why we're jamming this in the Bryant Park in one of the busiest weekends in the summer for activities. And I understand some people might not have permits, but it's a public park and people can use public parks to meet places.
Okay, just to clarify what your concern is that the competing events are going to clash just because there are a lot of people, or are you concerned that a specific audience is going to, I'm just to clarify your comment.
I think a group of people that will go to the park can be problematic to the situation and do programming, and not to warn someone and to say like, oh, I don't know what this means, I feel is disingenuous at best for something that's happened for 32 years. It would be like, I don't know, having.
But no, Tom, I'm just, are you concerned that there's just a number and sheer volume of people, or are you confused about group dynamics and there being some sort of altercation between groups
Both.
that have
Yes, the
existing
answer is
tensions?
okay. I don't think the Nike group has any intentions or gross things. I do think, and without saying more, I do think there's a potential of a larger incident knowing the groups. And I don't want to say more than that because I just think this is something where they might want to do some research before they go and do this, because I think there could be a problematic situation.
Okay, so you're concerned it's not volume, it's particular affinity.
It's both. Like, even best case volume is a problem.
I just wanted to clarify that particular point or concern so that we can be clear in our deliberations. Todd.
Hello, everybody. Am I finally in the right section for comments?
Yes, you are in the right section for comments.
Okay, so overall, the size of the event and the duration, as we've discussed, is concerning. And I think that any resolution of support or opposition that we come up with has to weigh very carefully the benefit of getting a large infusion of capital against the disruption and the long period of time that the lawn is going to be taken out of circulation. So that's a tough problem to weigh. I thought I heard that there would be a limitation or a very substantial reduction in the size of any other events. And I would hope that our resolution would reference that, and we would get a commitment from the Bryant Park management that will in fact be the case to offset the loss of the use of the park. I do think that Thomas's concern, I think what he's referring to is football or soccer hooliganism. It's hard for me to, the problematic nature, it's hard for me to imagine that, right? Americans or people that go in to see this kind of soccer, I don't think have a history of doing that. I think that as a former soccer player and a youth soccer coach, I think that having this, I can understand why Nike and even Bryant Park and many soccer fans would want to have something like this. And from that point of view, I do think it adds something to the culture and, social fabric of our city for the time that it's there. And I think that as we discuss this as a community, as a committee, that we should weigh all these factors and make sure that we get commitments about the issues that are of concern to us and to my fellow board members.
All right, thank you. Thank
Point of
you,
clarification.
Todd. Yeah. Okay.
Very clear, Todd. Nothing about.
Point
I
of
asked-
order, please wait to be called on by the chair.
Oh, I thought, yeah, it was.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, my fault. I missed.
Okay. We're back. I want to say, originally I came into this feeling like relatively positive. I knew it was big, but I looked up other TOMA events in other places, and I do feel that the community has really enjoyed a lot of these sport-focused events that we've had with the Masters and the US Open at some of our parks. However, I am very concerned about the length and it being overrun into these other events. And also, it just doesn't feel super certain on things like the lawn being ready. Like most people will have July 3rd off. That's a big day for people to be outside and people. Same with July 4th. So I don't know. I know we asked if there's any changing of the length, but it just feels very long to dominate a huge part of the park and to kind of take over, especially when the event itself was only 2 days. If the event was a bigger part of that, I would almost feel more positive to it, but the fact that the event is not most of the time is just set up a breakdown, that is a concern. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay. Comments? Additional comments? Christopher? Yes.
Tom, I think he had a point of information, but you just.
Tom, point of information?
Yeah, Todd, nothing to do with Nike. I will sum this up as politely as I can. There's another group that traditionally uses the park as a starting ground for their event every year to commensurate a riot that they had. And it's a women's group that does that. And they traditionally, because of the nature of what they're commensurating, don't ask for permits. But since 1993, they've started their march in Bryant Park, and that's what I'm worried about. And like, once again, I'm not saying that they're ne'er-do-wells either. I think that if they can't, if their objective is blocked, and then there's, God forbid, police involved because of the nature and the memory of what this event is, I think it's a volatile situation through no fault of Nike. And I want to be very clear. This has nothing to do with soccer, nothing to do with Nike.
I very much appreciate in a national climate right now where your concerns are coming from. I do think that there have historically been, with Bryant Park specifically, even within the last 2 years, a different potentially volatile situation that involved a military event at the same time as No Kings. That was completely avoided. There was no incident. It was very calm. So as far as that goes, and that was a significant, dramatically, radically, exponentially larger number of people involved. I think that just crowd management reasons or potential tensions, I think that is something that the park has handled well previously.
Are you saying that there's going to be? They just said they were going to have 1,000 people. Are you saying there was more people at
No Kings? Yes. At the No Kings March, this was, I guess it would have been a year ago. We saw it at the committee. There was a military event happening. It was around the time.
I understand that, but the count of people, I would say it would be more for this.
There were many multiples more for No Kings, but Christopher.
Okay, so I oppose the Nike TOMA Bryant Park application as submitted. This is not a small community soccer event. It's not light touch park use. Based on Nike's own public materials, you can Google them. TOMA is a large scale brand activation that is global. It combines soccer, music, DJs, merchandise, a night market, influencers and social media content, controlled entry crowd experiences, and Nike describes TOMA itself as a global street soccer platform operating across multiple cities worldwide. The Bryant Park application proposes the setup that's far too long. There's like 15 days that we're talking about here. The core issue is not whether soccer is good, soccer is great, but Bryant Park, one of Midtown's most heavily used public parks, is not the appropriate venue for a large commercial activation like this, built around crowd energy, music programming, late night market activity, and branded experiential marketing. What we're getting is something akin to the Winter Village for a few more days in the summer because of this kind of cash grab that Bryant Park likes to do. Another concern is timing. The activation overlaps directly with Pride weekend. We've been talking about Dyke March. It's one of the busiest pedestrian and event weekends of the year in Manhattan. Bryant Park already operates under intense circulation pressure during major citywide weekends, adding a first come, first served, high demand Nike activation with external screens, amplified music, and a night market activity on top of all of that raises obvious concerns regarding crowding, spillover, queuing, noise, and public space management. There are also broader concerns about the city's increasing allowance of commercialized corporate activations to dominate this parklet. Bryant Park is not a private event venue. It is a public park. It serves workers, residents, tourists, and everyday users like Mike throughout the day. Events of this scale privatize portions of the park experience. We were just told this is a contract between two private entities. I'm sorry, but this is a public park managed by a private entity and advised by us, a public entity. This is a public matter, and all of the information related to it should be given to the public so that we can make decisions fully. And also, our advice should be taken when we say things like, then don't have more activations after that. Public parkland should not be a platform for corporate reputational laundering without meaningful public benefit and transparency regarding, Nike is not simply a neutral community sports organization. It's one of the world's largest apparel companies, operating within industries that are scrutinized for microplastic pollution and a history of PFAS or forever chemical use. We just approved a major resolution from an assembly member about this particular type of pollution. Nike is up to its ears in it. The Nike has publicly stated that it is transitioning away from PFAS. Thanks for that. Their concerns remain regarding their environmental footprint with large synthetic apparel manufacturing and promoting consumer events. Public parkland, like I said, should not become a platform for this reputational laundering without meaningful public benefit and transparency regarding the environmental impacts, waste generation, and the commercial use of space. I also remain highly concerned about the broader governance model surrounding Bryant Park activations generally. Bryant Park increasingly functions as a quasi-commercial event space with limited public accountability regarding sponsorship agreements, revenue generation, and the allocation of public value. If the parks are to host such gigantic corporate activations of this nature, there should be substantial and greater transparency regarding what the public receives and the say that the public has beyond a generalized claim of maintenance support. So at minimum, this board should request a detailed, forget all of this. At minimum, we should absolutely deny this sort of thing. Denials are possible. Denials are something that we as a committee are entitled to make. We can say that they shouldn't be doing something like this. We can say that we don't approve of things like this, because if we say otherwise, what we're going to get is next summer, twice as many days will be taken up by Summer Soccer Village or something like that. It's going to increase because, again, if we give an inch on this, they will always take a mile. They've taken more than a mile. They've taken more than the whole park. We could go down the entire matrix. Every single one of these is pretty much a one, except for uniqueness and audience. And that's about it. It seems like a lovely experience for a private venue. That is the kind of talking about time. It seems like a lovely experience for a private venue, and that's where Nike has staged this in the past. When we asked where else was this, the other venues are not large central parks of the city. So again, Nike, spend a little bit more money, rent out your own place, don't use our park.
Are there other comments on a resolution forming? Okay, back. Are you agreeing with what Christopher said?
Raising his hand and I'm pointing. Oh no, Athena, sorry, she's on the.
Athena.
I am agreeing with Christopher here. In addition to all of that, for Bryant Park Conservancy to be a public-private partnership and come to a community board meeting with the posture you did, without the ability to promise to make the public whole on the days that the public can use the park, is really irrespectful of the nature of this partnership. The park belongs to the city and the people who live here, the tourists who come here. It is a public space. And I'm looking at the Form 990 from 2024. The entire year's park concessions is about $2.7 million. And for Nike to use the park for 15 days, I would think it's somewhere around that entire budget line or even more. So to ask that you make a commitment to the people of New York City to say that you won't have more concessions for just additional budget for we don't even know what is not a light request that can just be brushed aside with a no. So I think I have nothing against Nike, I have nothing against sports, I have nothing against people having fun. I just think, we're here volunteers on the board and we're trying to represent the people's voices. We want the city to be in good hands, and we recognize that the Conservancy has done good work over the past decades, but this is really about accountability and recognizing the park belongs to the people first and foremost.
Thanks, Athena. Kelly, I did just have a question on because this is my bad number of days counting. Did you say that the number of days of the lawn, you think that it already has been open more, or is it because the new sod will be going in with the new varietal that I am looking forward to offlining with your horticulturist about, is going in as the summer variety that's going to be tested, therefore it'll be a quicker turnaround and it might need less rest time than other varieties in the past? Just because you said something about getting the days back. I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on the number of days it's offline outside of this window and potentially this event creating the opportunity for additional days coming back when there won't be events on the lawn.
Yeah, I would like to check in with my horticulture team on that specific. I do know that we opened the lawn, I believe 2 to 3 weeks early this season to make sure folks had more time on it. And then to your point as well, rolling out the new grass is another measure that we're taking to make sure that the lawn is available once the event is over, and to make sure that it's there for, public use, make sure it's there for the views, the events, all of it. So, and I do want to also flag that, as I mentioned earlier in this call, the Bryant Park lawn will still remain open through the majority of this load-in. Our primary goal in this is to make sure that the park is still running, open, and of course, free to the public.
All right. Thanks for the number of days check-in. I just wanted to make sure that if we're counting days, but that we're actually counting them properly. John Klein, you had a comment.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with a lot of the concerns around just general commercialization of Bryant Park and the length of this event. I mean, even if the lawn is open, having a giant stadium being erected does diminish the use or someone's enjoyment of the lawn even during that time. But that being said, I think I am more supportive of this event given the uniqueness of the World Cup, given the uniqueness of the event. I think it is a cool thing to do, and I think it's a cool thing to support and there's something to be said that is happening in our district. And we haven't heard of that many other major World Cup events happening over the summer until being able to actually have
moratorium, so that there could be.
Despite a lot of things that there could be, having something that is taking place in our district that is this size, I think is notable and special and unique enough to support this event. I would also be happy to do deny unless there's some other conditions that we can make around getting more time of the lawn back later in the year or reducing the number of events given the additional spend or marketing or income that this is bringing into the park to not have to do things later in the year.
Or maybe around Christmas or something.
Yeah.
Todd.
Hello, everybody, if you can hear me. So
yeah,
who was, I can't see, who just made those very astute comments?
That was John Klein.
Yeah.
Oh, Don. Okay, yes.
John Klein.
John, I agree with what John said. He took the words right out of my mouth. I think all I have to add to it is I do think that if there is a consensus to approve this, it should be with a deny unless. and we should have a series of conditions. It was pointed out to me that there was no commitment by Bryant Park's management to agree to a limited number of additional events, but we should put together a series of conditions that express our concern and make it clear that we're not agreeing to this lightly. So cutting back on the number of additional events, I think is reasonable, given the fact that it is a large number, but at the same time, they're not going to be using the park for diminishing the use of the park through the rest of the summer and through the rest of the year. I think they should give us that commitment. The other thing I would say is that this is part, soccer, New York is an international city. It's in competition with, cities all over the world to host this sort of thing. And we have a lot of people that love soccer and they want to do it in the heart of Manhattan. This is not a full soccer field. It's just people playing in smaller teams, and we should be cognizant of that. Trying to build out our city as a forum for all these different kind of events. And I think it's easy enough for us to put together a list of conditions that address our concerns. And they may be things that the Bryant Park Corporation won't agree to. But I think that if there is a consensus, we should try to do that. And I think that's reasonable.
Michael Payback?
Yeah, but are we commenting then?
Yes, we are commenting and discussing whether or not we want to approve or deny unless with conditions is more of where the direction that I'm hearing just introduced.
So up until what John Klein just said, I was a definitely no. Much as I love the park, but what he says makes sense, Mr. John Klein. And I'm inclined to go along, hoping that they would listen to our unlesses.
With the conditions of like deny unless.
I just want to make clear, I lived in a house for 19 years, planted lawns, sod, all of that stuff. Ain't no way that lawn's going to be open 2 days after they remove that concrete bottom that kills all the undergrowth, that they're going to bring in the sod trucks, open up the sod, lay down the sod, water the sod, and they're going to keep people off for a week. Mark my words, a week after that is end. And Christopher said maybe even longer. So with all that in mind, I would go along with what John said. I want to see Bryant Park continue to prosper and continue to be my backyard as I've used it for over 30 years now, since I'm living on 40th Street. And I want it to continue to be my backyard, even though they're going to take away now over 2 weeks of my use. At least I'll be able to go to the piano and listen to that. So I'm all in agreement that we can, that I would go along with passing this with these following conditions and then go to town, guys.
That's my comment.
Okay. Because your concerns were about lawn use
Yeah, my use of the lawn and everybody else.
and everybody else's use.
It's not just a lawn. They're gonna be loading it in from 40th Street. They're gonna be.
So the disruption of the load in is something that we want to make sure that we cover. The disruption of the load in, the length and disruption of carrying materials.
That load-in is scheduled for what? How many days? 4 days. Saturday, June 20th to 24th. 4 days. Reading that right?
John Harris, we've not heard from you, not to cold call on you, but.
Well, and you're calling on me, even though I didn't. All right.
You look like you might want to jump in.
Well, no, I understand all the concerns. But I'm supportive of the event. Would incorporate all of our concerns into our new matrix in the future. So I'm drawing a bright line between now and the future. So maybe this event may have difficulty surviving.
In the future
any
after the new
yeah,
matrix,
any new matrix we have, but
but as of right now,
currently, based on what we've approved in the past, and what priorities we set, including, revenue generation, my inclination is to approve this event. And I prefer to say approve with conditions as opposed to deny.
okay, so what I've got right now is approve with conditions, deny unless, and then a straight deny. So I'm not sure that we've heard from necessarily everyone yet. Tom Ricardo.
I disagree with John pretty hard. Like, if we use the matrix we have, I don't think this scores well. And like key issues, footprint. Well, all right, that's whole. It's not the whole park, but would say it's a lot of the park. It's on the grass. I'd put that as a 2. Timing 1. Duration several days is what our worst case is. This is 2 weeks, so that's a 1. Breakdown and setup. This is a large stadium. That's going to be a 1. Commercialized mandatorizing 1. Signage. All right, let's be generous and say 2, 3. I'm being generous. Impact on residents 1. Interferes with general use. Impact on land and infrastructure. They did say they were going to take care of the trash. I still have concerns over not them, but other people. But let's say, trash violence is a 2, 3. Say 3 generous. Routine event that does not enhance the park experience. Uniqueness, we can give it a 5. I don't think anyone would argue here on that. Audience, national 1. Sound, noise 1. Public, commercial, for profit, narrow audience. Would say 2, 3 because I think it's a large audience, but it is very commercial. And experience has outgrown that, generates complaints. This is going to generate complaints. You're blocking 40th for the load and unload. But let's be generous and say a 2, 3. So what's the average error? 2, 1, somewhere between a 2 and a 1.
Not good.
Yeah, I will say that I do think that I don't know that there's consensus on all of the matrix items yet. I do want to get Bethina's comment, but then I heard some noises about the rating. Also, we use the matrix not as a hard and fast number that's like above or below. It's always been used. As of right now, the current matrix we have, perhaps not in the one that we'll hear from in a minute, maybe it's a proposal, but just using this one. But Athena.
Hey, I just want to confirm if this is going to be a vote on deny unless, like, what are the conditions? The one condition I'm hearing is Bryant Park making a commitment to not having additional concessions for the year. But I think even that creates a weird incentive for them to come back next year and say, we're going to have a summer village and a winter village. And last year you essentially approved because we committed to having no additional concessions. I think that's still a pretty bad scenario for us to have a extended period of 2 to 3 weeks without full access to the lawn and the park in the summer. So if someone can convince me on the conditions to make this approvable, I'm down to switch to a deny unless, but otherwise I think I'm more in the deny camp.
And your concerns have to do with, just from what your comments are earlier, to summarize them, the use of the lawn and days of access to the lawn and
Yeah,
impact
there's
on
an
the park
extended,
inside and spoke.
yeah, the extended period of disruption to normal use of the lawn, and there's already Winter Village, so I think for this to happen in the summer and even without any other concessions in the year, it's still unfit for a public park.
I do just want to note that the footprint of Winter Village is much larger. We're talking about it taking up most of the park. Just a point of information, the Winter Village does cover all of those walkways, and there was like planking put up, so it's like not just the lawn, it is all of the walkways too. And sometimes outside of the walkways onto the street. This is just within that narrow, like on the lawn itself. So that, I don't know, Kelly, if you've got like a square footage breakdown of the park itself. I feel like I'm a parky and a nerd and I should know that offhand, but I don't know the square footage of the lawn. but it is, yes, a large part of the lawn and most of the lawn, but it is not the entirety of the park. Just from a actual square footage thing, if we're gonna be like nerdy and accurate with numbers about it, just technical. Christopher.
I think there's nothing wrong with the denial. In fact, I think it's really the only path forward that we have, as was just pointed out. If we just give some conditions, the chances that those conditions will be met are low. So then say deny unless and put those conditions on. That's probably the most I would be able to move at all if I was gonna vote in any direction. But there's nothing wrong with us saying that this is not a fit for the park, that it is the opinion of the people in this room, which it should be, that this is not a right fit for the park. That, you know, it is not something that the average park goer would think was the right fit for the park. And I mean, again, we keep talking about what's gonna happen with this future matrix, what's happening with this park task force that's coming forward. We do have preliminary data, which we will be presenting in the next part of the meeting, that shows that out of hundreds of people, this is relevant, out of hundreds of people who've been asked, hundreds upon hundreds, 700 some odd people almost, or 600 some odd people. Almost none of them ask for more. None of them ask for more activations. None of them ask for more space to be taken up. None of them ask for more time. They ask for things, the balance to be kept, which I think is a fair thing. If we kept the lawn open, the balance would be kept. But to put in an entirely new, innovative marketing event that's a stadium, we are talking about building a temporary stadium on a passive lawn. That kind of event is not suitable. We don't think it's suitable. Like quite a few people in this room don't think it's suitable, just because it's cool, or because the idea that the World Cup is the city is going to be full of World Cup events. Let Bryant Park have a World Cup. Let Bryant Park have a World Cup viewing on the lawn with a camera with a projector where everyone can sit on the lawn and watch. That seems like a fine park event that I don't think we would have a single objection to in this room. But let's build a stadium, have a huge night market. You know, that is just increasing Bryant Park's movement toward becoming what we know Bryant Park thinks of itself as, which is a cash grabbing venue event space. That is not appropriate. And is it okay? It is totally okay for us to say this type of event is not appropriate. We shouldn't be doing things like this. The public doesn't think so, because the public does not think so, nor do many of us in this room. So I think the best thing we can do is say, no, thank you to this. They're going to do it anyway. We know what they're going to do. No, thank you to this. Don't bring this back. Don't bring things like this back. Don't sit around saying, if you do this, if you do that, just say, please, no, thank you to this kind of thing. It's not unreasonable for us to advise no. It's not unreasonable. In fact, in this situation, it's the only reasonable thing we can do to prevent the park from becoming a complete outdoor mall every season of the year, because they will find something for every season that's seasonally appropriate or wonderful, you know, and then we'll have a Thanksgiving market and a springtime flower market and every season can be occupied in this way. We have to say no now, not when we get some data that already tells us the public doesn't want this, not when you just can say no right now. There are people in this room, the way this whole conversation is going down bothers me to no end, because then we'll get a point of information to ask the park, oh, can you tell us more about something good or how it's not that big? It's like we're arguing against the committee structure in and of itself. It seems like this is determined to go in a direction, and it's unfortunate that it has to be that way. This doesn't need to be an uphill battle. It's okay to say this is a terrible event and we don't want things like this. The other thing that I will settle for is we can list out the conditions. Please, no more giant markets this year until the winter market, which we just give up on all the time. Please tell us the actual numbers before we get to the event, before we have to discuss it. Why can't we ask for that? We should. That should be a condition. Please minimize the things that they're never going to minimize. They're not going to change the number of days that they're using the lawn. They said that they already winnowed it down to the minimum. So this event is already their slimmed down, perfect event according to them. That's going to work. And we should just say, I'm sorry, it doesn't fit. It doesn't match. The only thing that Tom thought was kind of controversial about this is whether the audience was national or local. And it's true that these are local teams that are playing, but it's also a giant national and global brand. So you wash that out to a 3 is what I would say, and stick with all of Tom's other numbers, which would be like, again, 1 1 1 1 1 2 3 2 3 1 5 1 3, everything else 2 or 3. And again, if we're looking at the matrix and coming out with a score, I would say it's basically like a 20 out of 60.
Just a reminder, we
1/3.
don't do the matrix to a score. It is meant to be a
Well,
guide
no, no, no,
rubric.
we
What
can
we
do the
do,
matrix
what we
to a
do,
score and
what we
use it
do in the
to-
future with a future matrix, different. It says right in the mouse print on this that it is meant to be a guide, not meant to be a calculation.
But the
Also-
calculation is a guide. I'm not saying that there's a hard number.
Okay,
And,
yeah, I just saw Todd's hand first, but, Todd, comment?
Okay, so Tom, Christopher makes a lot of good points. And I would be reluctant to vote against this. And I disagree about what was said about our current matrix. The current matrix always takes into account the suitability and the balancing of the overall benefit to the community. I wouldn't underestimate the interest and suitability of soccer and people who are interested in that sport. Nor would I, given the current financial condition of our city, I wouldn't underestimate the large amount of revenue that's going to come in to keep supporting Bryant Park, which is, the standard along with Madison Square Park for prudent and effective management in many cases. However, in answer to Gail's comment, right, I do think there are a number of conditions we can put in. The first is a commitment to scale back other sizable events for the rest of the year. Another are the conditions that have been mentioned about handicapped access and access for the disabled and adequate care for all of the existing things that we ask of other types of events. And looking back on the broad sweep of things, we have had large-scale events in Bryant Park that equal to or exceed this in many respects. I mean, we have a skating rink there that's there for much of the winter, right? And there are other events that I could mention that had very large footprints. It's tough to give it up, but until we change the matrix and change the relative weighting on some of these concerns, I think there's enough there that deny unless configuration would be the suitable answer for this. We can express our concerns. We're not going to let this be a precedent going forward. And I think that's what we should do.
Michael Payback.
So I just want to be clear, we are the community board. We represent the voice of the community. And our major objection as the voice of the community has been stated over and over again. I don't have to go through it. My question is, we're an advisor. We advise. Are we advising Bryant Park as Christopher would have it? You can't have it? Well, they can say, take a walk, community board. We need the money more than you need so what's prevent them from just doing what they would like to do? We are not empowered to stop them. So maybe, just maybe, the solution might be give them some ideas on how they can make the community a little happier, not by totally eliminating this terrific source of income for them to do stuff, hopefully for our benefit, but to do it in a way that's agreeable to us and maybe make everybody not altogether happy, but somehow merging the middle. So my feeling is that I'm going to vote deny unless, or this, of course, the other way to do it, but I'm going to vote to allow it. Like we can, like we're in control to allow it with the conditions that we've talked about. My opinion.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that you want to try to be influential and shape at the margins, because you're not opposed to commercial use potentially in the park or an event of this size, an event of this nature, but the size scope. Okay.
I am opposed to it, but I think that it's gonna happen anyway. And I think that the way to, maybe we could modify
To be
it. in a way
influential.
that-
Is to ask for changes to it,
Yeah.
but you are opposed to it otherwise.
Yeah. Well, if it, just yes or no, no. I'm not gonna use that park for over 2 weeks. For one,
Okay,
but I know it's gonna happen anyway, so let us take that into account. We're not gonna stop at Christmas.
Okay. John Harris,
Yeah, I'd just like to sort of endorse the last two speakers. I mean, I know they said two different things, but important. First of all, I don't think we have enough information to declaratively say that the public is opposed to this event. In fact, I would argue quite the contrary. You know, that New York has proactively decided to host the World Cup and bring people from all around the world. We are the center of Manhattan, which is the center of New York City. And I think it's totally appropriate in this particular event, you know, circumstance to host such an event. In the past, you agreed that that list, this matrix, is advisory, it's not determinative. We've approved many events in the past that have scored low on most areas, but they scored high on uniqueness. Sort of a one in a kind event. There was a cultural fit for New York, and also because of the revenue. I also agree with this notion that it's going to happen no matter what. So I see us as sort of negotiating with Bryant Park and saying, look, maybe you can address some of our issues at the edge, because this event is going to happen. So I don't see any benefit in just saying no. But going back, and I know personally, I don't think we should have introduced the findings that have not been fully presented yet, but I did sit in on that meeting and heard the findings. So since that issue has been brought up, I saw nothing in the findings personally that said in a declarative way that the public would be opposed to this event. So I just outright disagree with that finding.
I mean, I think that the numbers just haven't fully come in yet, and
But even the numbers that come in to date, the 700 to 800 have not, show me where in that report says that they would be
waiting
opposed.
until.
Relevant times, we're going to a presentation on that.
I think but I think that even the interim report on that, I think that we need to wait, like, until we get the data.
Yeah.
This committee
Yeah.
has been very interested in getting.
Yeah.
We wanted to collect more information from residents. I think that there is a lot to be said for waiting until we have all of that information, and then we can evaluate
Right.
how we want to approach.
Which is what I think is the appropriate.
Right,
way to
like,
go.
we're reevaluating the whole thing. Some of the things that might come out are a different matrix or a different approach to parks. Some of this stuff is handled at like the city higher level as far as
Right.
agreements of what the city is
Right.
doing in its park management.
Right.
Which is, we have to direct our comments elsewhere and not to applicants coming within that system. I do think that if we want to make our experience of this particular event more mutually agreeable,
Right.
being able to influence things sort of in a positive feedback manner, is frequently our most effective way. But it does sound like I'm hearing more towards a deny unless structure. Is that accurate?
Which is still kind of an approval of the budget. I mean, it's.
If
I
the
guess I'm a-
conditions are met, I think it depends on what the conditions would be, which.
Well,
I'm
it's
sure
gonna
we are,
happen no
yeah.
matter what. So it seems to me ultimately, are we making a binary statement? Yes, no, or are we saying, we can live with this, but we would like to see X, Y, and Z.
I'm saying if we have to live with
Yeah,
that,
or fine, or we have.
Which
to
is,
live with
which
it,
is different.
But there's still, but in the
The
spectrum,
deny and.
I guess
unless
in the
and approve is
spectrum,
more of a
what I'm
yes, we
opposed
agree
to is a flat out
A flat out denial.
denial, or this is just totally against the values of CB5.
perhaps until we
That's-
reevaluate
Yeah. I don't-
coming out of the
right.
task force, what the values are, because
Right.
that is still in process.
Right.
Okay, got it. Very much heard. Tom.
Even with the commercial nature, and I just, I think this is something where, John, I agree. I was agreeing with what John's saying, excuse me, Mr. Chair. But, I want to say the vet alone, I don't think is problematic. It's time and place. I don't think Bryant Park is the right place to have it. And I think that's where the deny comes from. It just, if you look at the other cities that they've had this event, it's always been to the side, not the, like, it's not like they're having this at in Mexico City in the Palacio de Constitution, which I think would be more relevant to Bryant Park than anything else in Mexico City. It's not like in Miami, they were having it in Brickell. They were having it on kind of on a side island, more of a Randall's Island situation. And if you look at it in LA, it was in Venice. Like, they kind of avoided these places where it was the middle of town, where there's other things going on. And I think the event itself is not the issue here. And I get, like, yeah, there's a uniqueness, there's a want, there's a need. I would have preferred, and if it's a deny, I would have preferred to understand why didn't he go to the Parks Department first. And like with the money, I understand that, but I haven't heard Bryant Park complain about their money situation. I've had questions about Bryant Park. So yeah, it's great Bryant Park is getting money, but we're in a situation where the city's squeezing. I don't know. I would have preferred to see something go to the Parks Department on that in that advisory. Like, I think it would have been more appropriate in the back end of Union Square if we're going to talk about within our district and space within the Parks Department.
And just
not
Tom, just point, that's not how the Parks Department permitting process works. It goes into the general
I
fund, not
understand
necessarily
that.
to the.
But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is, I understand that. Look, like, they can't transferably do this. I think the issue here and the issue where it gets down to it is we got a presentation from you, like, there's a growing, let's say, concern, which I until today I didn't really think much of Bryant Park being too commercialized, not being a park. They came in here. This is an event that just, if you look at everywhere else in the world where they've had this event, cool event, definitely event you want to have. We can talk about the commercialization, but otherwise, I think it's right in line and all that. It doesn't make sense why they're having it in Bryant Park and why Bryant Park was the first choice. Now, if they want to say, like, look, these other places, we had problems because it wasn't centralized and we're looking for a centralized spot, that's fine. But we got instead, like, we made a money agreement and that's between two private parties, which is not the way I think. And once again, you're asking, as we address the park, as we vote on this was presented as, when we ask those questions, hey, the grass will be great, don't worry about it, and everything else is between two private parties.
Okay, so.
That's
but just going towards,
concerning.
Tom, an actual moving towards a resolution of what we want to actually take action on is 8:30. I would like to wrap this item up. I think that we're moving in a direction. It sounds like people mostly would, I think that we lose a little bit of our ability to comment if we do a straight denial, because I don't think that there's any room for feedback in that capacity. I think that asking for modifications or conditions, unless the underlying facet is under absolutely no circumstance do we want anything that is of this nature in the park, but I'm not sure that we are there yet. I'm also hearing that we're not sure that we're there yet with our current president. So what I'm hearing is a little bit more of a approve with conditions, but I'm mostly hearing a deny with conditions is what I'm hearing. Is that sort of accurate from where we're going? I think I've lost Todd's camera, but Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is that people are concerned about essentially losing the vast majority of the lawn in the park for a period of 2 weeks, to construct and break down a stadium, etc. And I would move that, given that feedback, we pass a deny unless resolution.
Okay.
Second.
What are the unlesses, what are the conditions that we would want to see modified that we would be more mutually agreeable or amenable to? I'm hearing the breakdown, the load in, the breakdown is shorter. I'm hearing the load in being shorter and also not being disruptive as they carry things in. Also, I need someone to be writing
They
that, by
probably
the way.
can't do any road
Did-
into
did-
it.
John Bob's doing
Libby,
the other one. Yeah,
did we get the limitation on additional events?
Yeah, that should be a big one.
okay, that, you just introduced it,
I
I think
think
that's the biggest, I don't know.
Right, that's the biggest one.
if you're
And they
building and
committed.
breaking
but we,
down a
but
state.
if it's meant to be a statement about things we would want to see in the future, and I believe that points have been raised previously that the load in and load out is the disruptiveness, and a big part of why this is upsetting, that if it could just teleport in and teleport out, that I don't know that there would be as much upset about this, at least for certain members of the committee. So it sounds like load in, load out in general, as a commentary on events, is a relevant thing to discuss, and it sounds like the load in is the longer part. And that the length is a thing, not necessarily the size, if the load in is different. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And I think there should be, going forward in future years, a cap on how many days they close the park for commercial activations, including load in and load out. I think
I don't
that's
think
my
the park is
concern.
closed for the load in. Like the park itself isn't closed, it's a portion is
Sure,
restricted.
park
It's not
interruptions.
the park.
Yeah.
Interruption, okay, interruption versus actual access. Just, I wanna make sure that we're being very specific here, because it makes it difficult for partners to work with us if we don't give them something that they can react to in a constructive way. But so park interruption, also Charlie, are you gonna be writing this? Having introduced it,
I can, sure.
okay.
So I think there needs to be a limit on the number of days the park's interrupted for commercial use, that generates concessions for them, including load in and load out time. And I think that number should be a single digit, because the park is already closed for Winter Village, which is from October to March, which is just like, if Madison Square Park come and say this, we would be like, what? So I guess I would propose 5 days. If anyone else have a different opinion, can throw
For
in their
the
opinion.
load in for any specific event or total?
For total.
I don't think that
That's
that's
a
realistic.
fact.
I don't think that that's realistic. I think that just from like, there are other parks that have been mentioned where the load in is frequently an entire week. And so even though the park, and similarly, the park is not closed during that time, the walkways are not closed, there is just activity. I think that we need to be consistent in order to be like a fair arbiter in general. I also
Sure.
think that
How
we should be
about
looking
how about 100 days, including Winter Village?
I mean, I think that being prescriptive in a number, I think we should probably wait until after the task force comes back. But limitation, I think, is potentially open, but I'm hearing a lot of Christopher.
I think it'd be fair to say like substantially reduce the interruptions and agree to a limit. You know, we don't have to say what that limit is, but agree to limit future activations because of this one. Right, like this is a deny unless, so it's like, hey, you're getting this big activation, it's really big, it's taking a lot of time. You should agree that from now until Winter Village, you know, there
There's a
will be
limit, there's
hard-
a limit,
whatever you think it
okay.
can be 0, but whatever. They can say 3 or 1 or whatever it is, but we should say they should agree to limit their commercial activity based on that sort of thing. I think another condition we could add is we want the dollar amounts.
And I have one, Bill, can we
Well,
hold them to what they said? Didn't we hear them say that they would likely
They would what?
limit?
No, she said absolutely not.
No, she refused to say what, but they said, I thought there
She
was
said
a
she wouldn't,
statement
but
at
there
some
was no-
point that this may impact future.
Just, Kelly, sorry if I'm speaking about your job for you, but I don't think that any representative from an organization, I don't think Kelly is authorized to speak. I think there are probably like additional people who write contracts and sign contracts.
I'd love
that
to,
we'd be-
I'd love to clarify my comment if I could. I said no, because I personally cannot make that promise. My larger team are the folks who would make those decisions. So as I said earlier, I'm more than happy to take this to my larger team. I'm more than happy to have these conversations and report back to you guys, but me personally, Kelly Collins, cannot make that promise. I am not at liberty to do that. I am not authorized to do that.
not authorized to sign the contract, and negotiate with us, which I think is completely reasonable, but I do think that there is a larger conversation to be had. I think
Right.
that they're amenable to it. I think that we should embrace that as part of this conversation that we've been having since last September and certainly since last summer. In a more holistic way, and I think that is, I think I really appreciate those comments, Kelly. And being responsive to having a conversation about the number of days
Yeah,
of commercialization, so it sounds like that should be part
that'd
of,
be a condition.
it can be a condition,
Yes.
is like a conversation and
They
it.
commit to having a
And
conversation.
there is, well, they've committed to a conversation, but I think that there should be a
Yeah,
whatever
a
beyond
good
that.
faith
It's like-
conversation.
Okay.
Something like that. I just think for this resolution, we should be focusing on things.
Specific to the
Yeah,
soccer,
specific to this resolution.
Yes.
That potentially, whether they will accept or not, they could, if they wanted to change. As opposed to saying, okay, we're gonna, instead of a resolution talking about the entire footprint for the whole year
think-
for the park.
I think in that way, I think that some of for the whole year, because this is a longer one, makes sense, but only just to the end of the calendar year, not like
Yeah.
in life. Or we could
Right.
limit to future next year, don't
Right.
use this as a
Yeah.
precedent, that happens all the time. I would say that a recommendation to make as much of that lawn accessible if people are walking in. Is making sure that we're directing people in a way that it's not impairing as people load into the games, that you actually can still use the lawn. It's not just people gathering like a concert or something, so that it's still usable in some capacity. I think that might be something to ask for that seems workable. Does anyone have any comments on
That ADA, you don't forget about ambassadors.
ADA ambassadors? Okay. Did anyone have any thoughts about the sale of merchandise, since that is technically the primary commercialization here?
The sale of alcohol probably means to a great extent, because it's a very crowded situation with younger people, but I don't know how much more we can even really say about that.
So it sounds like there isn't a problem with the sale of stuff. Okay,
I think that's probably why they're willing to spend however much they're willing to spend that we're not allowed to see.
And there's always like limited edition stuff, the World Cup, I don't know, I guess because of the timing, I don't think it's their first thing.
it's just an important point to clarify. I don't know if it's always been the feeling of this committee, so.
I feel like this is, I mean, again, since they don't give us the numbers, and I think that should be a condition that they do in advance, but I think this is a bargain for NGSU's ones. I think it's like one of these mutual, like win-win situations, because if they had like, I don't know, Madison Square Garden or like some other venue, event space and had to rent it out for 2 weeks. Plus all of this, I think the price tag would be higher than whatever number they're not telling us about, because again. I think it's just, they're just the cheapest game in town for this maybe, or, the cheapest game in town that they could be, whatever. I just think they're probably they're getting a deal. I don't think they're doing it because it's, I don't think they're like, it's like some sort of lost leader. They're not dumping money and they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. It's a cheap advertisement. It's like, run this on national television, or even New York markets. You get nothing, but they'll get free media for this. Got all this.
I think that we've talked about this previously, but I think that we can have one of the conditions be like in that conversation about like limiting time, that it's a conversation overall about fees. I think that we consistently kind of talk about fees to go into parks, but that's not really how it works if it's not inside of one of the conservancy like arrangements. But also, I think that that's a larger team question, and the way that we've talked about handling it in the past, because traditionally, based on this model that maybe depending on the task force could be thrown out, but as of right now is our current model, the amount of revenue that is generated for the other activities that we have approved that people do enjoy, that are consistently, thriving, needs to get paid for. But as far as how much revenue comes in from these, like sort of in that exchange and that trade-off, we've talked about doing it as a Likert scale, essentially like a range previously, but that is something that we can make a discuss. Yes.
Just a really quick note on transparency. When it's a public entity that rents this space, like Orlando some Orlando tourism department rented out part of the park to say, hey, come down to Florida, whatever. That is publicly available information quite easily because the state or the city of Orlando had to, say that they paid like $186,000 or whatever it was for their Orlando rent the park out thing. So we can, looking at the things inside of Bryant Park that are publicly available, it's like when public entities do it. When, the attitude that we, I don't mean just to say attitude, sounds horrible. The response is like, this is between two private entities, so that's the way this is. That hampers our abilities, public, servants to actually balance what the public wants. Like if you said to me, hey, Nike's doing this for $3 million, I'd be like, I'm out of here. I don't care. $3 million, whatever. That's more than your whole budget. Go nuts. But we have no context. And then we're kind of shamed for not being able to know or fully balance these things. So it's hard because like, if that number is like, and then it gets tinged like emotionally such that if that number is going to fix their entire budget, that sounds like infinite money. And in reality, we know it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I think that is why it is super important to say that while we can talk offline with larger members of the team from Bryant Park, and we have in the past, and that is something that has happened sort of like ballpark ranges. I think that one, for this activation, it is a very large, significant amount. And if you've been on this committee a long time, you know that Kelly's been here a long time, that an event of this duration, I think Bryant Park does drive a pretty hard bargain given their options, just as far as context on what the exchange of size, scale, duration, loud, all of that. Speaking of loud, we should talk about the sound and decibel stuff, but I think that one of the more important relationship maintenance things we should do is find a way that is mutually agreeable for this committee and is workable for Bryant Park so they can negotiate, that we have a better understanding of what those trade-offs are and not a live meeting, some publicly findable way because we are a public entity, but that there is a conversation. I think that is a conversation that we should ask for and we can memorialize in this, but I do think that it's a conversation that I think that in the past they've been open to figuring out a way forward and that I think might help take the temperature down in some of these conversations. Charlie.
Yeah, I would just advocate to have something about transparency in there. I think it doesn't make any sense to sit in here and like argue for 2 hours about whether a deal is fair or not, when we literally don't know at all the ballpark value of the deal. We're just arguing about random stuff that could totally be outweighed if, like Christopher said, oh, the deal's $5 million, amazing. That funds the entire park for the entire year. That sounds like a great deal, stamp of approval. We have absolutely no idea whether that's the case or not. So I just don't, I would advocate for some transparency as one of the key features here. I feel like we have a great laundry list of other things we want to say in this resolution, and I would suggest that we vote on it and move on to the next topic.
I agree.
Okay.
Can we hear the conditions list again? I
Yeah.
just want to make sure what I know what I'm voting
Absolutely.
on.
Okay, shorter load in and breakdown, limitation on additional events in the rest of the year, park interruption limit in terms of like not the actual space of the stadium, but how much of the rest of the park is being used for load in and breakdown, et cetera. Number of days of interruption, if it's possible to shorten that at all. ADA ambassadors, some more information about sound and decibel limits and what?
Okay, finish this, but then I have a point of information.
Sure, and some transparency as to, moving forward, when we see these proposals, we're pretty much in the dark and we're arguing about whether a deal is fair without knowing the most basic part of the deal, the dollar amount.
Okay, hang on just a second. Kelly, is there anything more generally you can say or speak to sort of like range as we have in the past?
I can share that the site fee is significant. I can share it's in the 7 figures. But beyond that, I am not able to share that, me personally.
Thank you for giving us like a threshold level of the floor there, though. I think that is.
That's why we said deny unless. Let's just vote.
So we've moved Christopher to a deny unless.
We've all.
but he's more into it.
Can we take it over?
Okay.
Can we get
Point
no
of, point of
vote?
order, are we
have a motion.
writing
We've had
in
a
the
motion, right?
resolution that we have a lack of information?
Chris, you don't have.
No, we have the information, but
Can we go over the items again? Because that was in the list of things.
Charlie just
that we
read them
just went
out.
over. Yes, and you said lack of information. So you asked a clarifying question. I'm saying, are we striking the lack of information from?
No, I mean, I
I
think
just can't see how you can
Can
put
we
that in a
change the
resolution.
language to the working with Bryant Park to find mutually agreeable,
Right.
like a mutually agreeable way to convey relevant information about the financial realities of running a multi-million-dollar costing park in the middle of Manhattan.
But the real
And-
question is, what information are you asking for before this event?
Yeah,
Correct. You
before the
can't say
event.
lack
The
of
real
information in a
question is-
resolution.
Okay. Christopher.
We can ask for whatever we want. I mean,
What
what we
Okay.
want
what
is-
makes sense?
what we
Yeah,
want is
we can ask-
information before the event. We'd have that, even if it's unfortunately just 7 figures or something, but that information as part of the application from the very beginning.
Some of that is the
Like-
questionnaire, which your task force might be able to recommend.
Makes the
I
question.
would add to, yes, that is one of the expectations that I have of your task force.
Well, that's the next.
Yes, but as of right now, that is not something that we have, so. Take it to a vote.
Yes.
Okay. Charles Baker,
Yes.
John Klein, I'm a yes. Athena Cow,
Yes.
John Harris.
Yes.
Libby Hutton,
Yes.
Michael Kabak.
Yes.
Gail Kelly,
Yes.
Christopher Nazaro.
Yes.
Thomas Ricardo,
Abstain.
Pat Shapiro,
Yes.
and Andy is on.
Good right.
That is, it passes, 9 yes and 3 abstentions. The deny unless passes.
Great.
Wait, whoa. Point of order, wouldn't it be absent, not abstentions?
You have 3
Is
abstentions?
the reason I'm abstaining is I have a lack of information. I still don't know what was in the resolution. The correct answer wasn't questioned. So I don't want it to show up like I wasn't there.
We
I'm
don't-
abstaining
we
for a
don't-
reason.
We don't have the time to explain.
Then I
votes.
change my vote to a no, please.
Okay, then he's a no. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Amir. We will definitely be in touch, Kelly, about discussing more things. As part of our ongoing conversation, and really appreciate your time, and bringing unique events to the committee.
So I guess just quick question. There's obviously a lot of conversation here
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
last 2 hours.
Yeah.
Was that a deny with conditions? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, it was, we deny unless certain things happen, in which case we will be much happier and this would be amenable to us if certain things happen.
Understood. We could be more glass half full and say approve with conditions, but I understand.
Yeah.
Libby, would you mind sharing a quick bullet point of the conditions, just so I have it to share in the morning? I did my best to take notes, but
Charlie has it and Charlie just left, but roughly, we can get you the transcript. Do you
I
want to
just,
get her the?
just
the back?
something brief, just so I have it to share.
No, well, I can get the transcript.
Get the transcript from
I can get the transcript. Will you do a little write about the transcript?
I mean, we'll copy and paste when we get the transcript for tonight. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we
when
can,
did
we
it
can
get
get that,
to-
we can get that to you for tomorrow, probably by the afternoon, based on schedules, if that's okay.
Libby, you wanna read what it's gonna say?
Yeah, well, I don't have it in front of me. I don't have the transcript in front of me.
No, I
That,
mean, what the, our resolution.
yeah, that's what's gonna be in the transcript. Charlie has it. Charlie just left with it. Roughly, it's about the length of the load-in, the disruption of the park.
Well, the things we discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's everything we discussed that's in it, that Charlie laid out, that's in the transcript. We're gonna get that to them. Christopher is gonna help turn the transcript into some bullet points of top lines for Kelly, but probably not until,
No, as soon as the meeting's over. As
Okay.
long as we have access to the.
Yes.
Zoom.
yes. The answer is yes, and we can do that. Mostly it's just about having an ongoing conversation with you guys and then having your input perhaps on the adjustment of a questionnaire and a conversation so that there is more transparency of the numbers before this happens, in which case I think that that might change opinions.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'll be on the
Thank you.
lookout.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Christopher, Todd, the floor is yours for your update, though I believe that you've asked for an extension
Yeah.
of sorts,
I mean,
so.
Where's, so, can I share my screen?
Did I hear my name called?
Yeah, you're up, Todd.
What am I up for?
Okay.
Hello?
I'm sharing my screen now. We're looking at the screen of my.
You're presenting the task force.
Oh, okay, the task force,
But it's a
okay.
preliminary check-in, it is not complete.
Is Christopher,
He is sharing his screen
I don't, let me see.
currently.
Okay, look at that.
okay, Christopher, you can go first and I'll chime in as necessary.
Sure. I mean, so I guess just by way of updates, the first thing is that we'll bring a resolution here to the Parks Committee in September. Right, so, or whatever the September.
The
cycle is.
September meeting, which would be
So,
August.
August what? We don't, it's not even on the calendar. I tried to check. Yeah.
If it's the second week, the second Thursday in September, it's whatever the 3 weeks prior to that is,
Second.
or 2 weeks
Thursday.
prior to that,
It's 2 weeks through.
2, 3, depends on the meeting.
But we're only going back to the 15th. At any rate, that's,
Which is terrible, I guess.
it's a Monday. So on Monday, the 17th, we'll be back of August with a resolution for the committee. We're thinking based on what we met today, to discuss some of this. Obviously, we'll be, having a new proposal for the matrix. The questionnaire will be, maybe streamlined. And, we will, have all of our, data analyzed and everything in a row. Preliminary stuff, preliminary data, which we already gave at our, public hearing, right? We went over all this at the public hearing already, so it's already kind of publicly on the market. We went through this, but we can look at it very quickly here. You can see that from our largest survey, for which there's almost 500 respondents by now. From our largest survey, the balance between the parks is very even. We're not like seeing one park or another park short shrifted. It looks like Central Park, thanks to well, no, actually Union Square, the one closest to me, is the leader. And then Bryant Park, where Mike is always doing this, and Central Park, Todd is always there. Those are about the same. And then Madison Park, we could probably use a little bit more data from Madison Park to even it out. But everyone's occupying a similar slice of the pie. The tiny slices are the smaller plazas, where we have question people like the ones near Union Square or the pops, like the one by Madison Green or Capitol Plaza behind the Capitol apartment building on like 27th and 6th. How often do you visit the park is right here. It's all, again, a very similarly broad distribution. It looks like weekly attendance is the highest category right now, but monthly rarely would be more tourists, so that's about a quarter. But we do ask that question directly also. What people are doing in the park, relaxing and reading is among the top of the thing. Eat or drink. Attend events is one of the options, but I'm not seeing it. It's definitely one of the lower options, like people who attend for events. So we do see that in terms of how people are using the park, relaxing and passive activities dwarf other types of activities there. And then we get, a lot of nice little responses, bird watching, people watching, etc. Who are these people? More than half of them are local residents, which we define in this survey as anyone living within the 5 boroughs. Workers could be a mix. We don't know where they live. They didn't say. And then visitors are tourists or people from other states like New Jersey. how would you rate the park experience? People always rate the park experience very high. We have noticed a very high level of satisfaction with our parks. And that's something to be commended, something people like. These get a little bit more complicated, the things that people prioritize in the park. The more blue, the more a higher priority it is. And the outlier here is the playground, which we realize is a priority for people. But as adults without children, we're not allowed to go in the playground and ask. So we asked at least members that have children to go to the playground, other people who can have access to the playground, maybe, but all the same, I don't think we're gonna say that people don't like the playground or something. It just makes sense why there's a anti-playground bias. But we can see the main things that people want from our parks are open space, greenery and plants, and quietness. Again, we get to the end, events and programming, those are much lower. People don't seem to want or care about the events as much as those other priorities. Other priorities that are very high or things that would bother people are things that bother people a lot. Again, the more blue you see is the worst, and the more yellow is actually not a problem at all. They're not most of the people are not that upset with corporate branding, although there is a significant minority that does report that as a major problem. Same thing with crowding, the noise, maintenance, and space. Whether the park is open or closed too early, most people are fine with the closing hours of the park, but again, a significant minority would like certain areas to be open more. Everyone's aware of the businesses. Obviously, this question is just a lead in to what we think about the commercial activity in the park. This is the kind of thing that I was referring to earlier when I'm talking about like what are people saying in terms of the park level of commercial activity. People think that it's about right. Like that's 60%. People like the balance of commercial activity in the park the way it is. Then the next largest segment say there's too much. So if we combine those two areas, that's about 80% of the people saying things are fine the way they are, or they're too much, right? People who say there's too little is the smallest yellow sliver. There are not many people clamoring for more activity in the park, commercial activity specifically. This is another commercial activity finding that I think is relevant and interesting. Oh my God. It disappeared quickly. It's just that, do we think commercial activity is good for the park or not? In this case, the people think that it has no noticeable impact or detracts from the park experience more than people who think that it improves the park experience by just a small margin. Again, this is a set of an area where people are generally balanced, and it will fall to the community board to kind of balance these issues. If you had to choose, would you prefer more activity or less? This is something else that I was saying. The people who say more are a minority. The people who say more are a majority, are a very small minority here, 15%. Only 15% of the respondents thus far have said we want more programming and activity in the parks, which means, again, the largest minority says keep the balance the way it is. And another very sizable minority says we want more unprogrammed space. And then the last question is if you could change something about the parks, which is a huge undertaking. We'll have to look at all of these, things from more bathrooms to fewer e-bikes around the outside to how cleanly we want it to be. Questions about people who are unhoused being in the park, dogs, all those kinds of things are up for grabs on that part of the survey. So that is just a very quick run through that set of preliminary data. I will start sharing the screen.
Now, if I may, I thank Christopher for his very astute and hats off to everybody on the task force for working very hard. A few additional things must be said. One is that the outreach effort where we are going out and engaging directly with the members of our community, both people who live here, visit, and work here, is, I think, a tremendous positive and informing all of us in the task force as to the nuances and the shades of gray when we ultimately write our report. So the kind of issues that we were dealing with tonight and how we ultimately change the matrix, I think that all of us on the committee and that includes Zool that is not here. I know how he felt that the outreach component was so very important. I think we're going to be in a good position to put together a written report that advises the community board in the best possible way. And it should be a good metric that should last us for a decent interval. I would also say, and I won't put words into the mouths of my task force members, it's something that we should revisit on a reasonable basis, because things change in New York City all the time, and we should be cognizant of that. We still have 3 months, and we discussed it at our meeting today. The more information we have, the better will be our decision making. So the parts of the we know we've gotten excellent results in the major parts, but we still have work to do in identifying certain segments of our residents and the people in our district, getting the sentiments of the people that live closely near the parks. We have more work to do there. I don't know that we've gotten a fair cross-section of how people feel about the POPs and the smaller parks. In my time on the board, the underserved parks or the POPs have lagged in their performance management and satisfaction. So we have our work cut out for us to build that piece of the pie and get information so we can advise our colleagues at full board on what has to be done. And then I agree with Christopher. The big trends thus far are clear, which is that people, and this is not surprising. First of all, Christopher mentioned we had a wonderful forum, and all of us had a very good discussion, all of the task force members. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at that. You can see it. It's about 45 minutes or an hour, right? But I think that the major trends are clear, as Christopher related, and they're not surprising. This is New York City. It's one of the most densely populated cities in the world, and this is their backyard. So they're stuck, especially younger people and people just moving in. They have small apartments, and they don't have a lot of space. They can't really flee the city. People of modest means or younger people, they go into those parks. It's their backyard. And most of the time, they just want to be exposed to the green space, read, talk, people watch. They have a certain tolerance for commercial activation. And I think they're reasonably mature about understanding that, at least for our big parks, there has to be commercial activity to support them, right? So that to me is, consistent with what the Parks Committee has always felt. So I'm looking forward. I think it's important that we got some more time to work on this. And everybody on the Parks Committee, not just the task force members, go to the website, get copies of the QR codes, and help us, right? I don't think Christopher mentioned it, but he did a terrific job of bringing in community college students who we've deputized to help us do the outreach to the people in the parks. And that's really we're gonna take advantage of that. And all of you on the Parks Committee help us, right? We're putting tables out in the park, and we've been refining the surveys. So I just think that hats off to the task force and everybody that's helped. And we're hoping that come September, there's going to be a great report that we can present the full board. Christopher, did we miss anything?
No, I doubt it, unless anyone has questions.
Do you have a plan for accessing the additional residential buildings and getting feedback from those residences? Like, do you have a list or a list of like the presidents or like just the actual, like I don't know, a circumference around each park, or like, how are you measuring it?
It's 1 to 4 blocks
Okay,
for the residential surveys.
so how many buildings are there in that?
I mean, I don't think. we
It's
have a
around
count.
each of the parks, including the little fun, the little,
I mean,
Pop parks.
if it has the pops, those buildings, they
you're
know,
counting the pops also.
they know that they're there. Yeah, for a
Well, no,
resident.
but they
if
might have opinions. about-
Yeah, no, I mean, I've handed, I mean, what we've done so far, what we'll continue to do, Andrea, who is not on our.
Not on our committee, but
but
is on the
she's
task force, yeah.
Doing a wonderful job, she's in charge of the residential part, and she's, emailed a bunch of management companies, handed things out, and then Todd and I have both given the residential survey to the doormen, of as many buildings as we have gotten to, either in Madison Park near the other one. We've emailed block associations, we've had the office. The office winds up doing a lot of this outreach because they have the contact, because like they don't respond to Christopher
Right.
CB5 email,
Gmail.com,
gmail.com, but they respond to
an actual
at
person.
the actual .gov or whatever their address is, CB5 address. And then I think the neighborhood associations are probably some of the best neighborhood associations, co-ops. So we're just gonna keep up with that throughout the summer, like, doing that. And then in our interpersonal interviews, now the first question is, are you a resident within 1 to 4 blocks? And if they are, we go immediately to the resident survey rather than interview people. Cause we're not, there, out of those 500 people that did the intercept survey, a portion of them have to be local, like really local residents. We didn't capture them as that because we were interviewing them as like, hi, we're in the parks with you.
Got it.
So, now we have a new system in place to catch residents and give them their own survey.
Are
So
you
the
doing a
residential survey's
snowball
done.
sample where you're asking the residents to then put you in touch with additional residents who live nearby? Sorry to get
We've
nerdy
done
on the
that,
snowballs.
for the doorman, definitely, and Mike just did that actually before. Mike is like, oh, I'm giving it to my brother who lives at the building, and I was like, tell him to do all the people that he knows in the building, and then so he texted Mike back, should I do it to all the people in the building? And I was like, yes, just
Snowball sample, okay.
do it. So, yeah, no, that is part of our approach. And, I mean, if Andrea sees this, which she may, because I'll probably excerpt this part of the meeting
When
and
you
put
do
it
the
on,
transcript.
our site. No, like,
Okay.
for the YouTube, so that everybody on our committee everybody on our thing can see it. Anybody on the committee and anybody on the board who wants access to all of our stuff can have it, it's very easy to get. Just,
I did reach out to the WeWork that I work at, and they were like, we only do that for companies that have to like sponsor an event with us, and I was like,
so they wouldn't, you mean they wouldn't distribute the survey?
no. They would
Not-
not just like send an email.
Not for a public,
Thank you.
not for a public entity, they'll only do it for the corporate.
You have to like host an like event in the WeWork.
Well,
And
what's
then they'll
cost
send
them
it
stuff
out
for
first.
that? What do they charge?
I think it's free, but like, yeah.
It's free to host the event?
I think if you're a WeWork member, yeah, I don't know if you're like,
You're the member.
Yeah.
So you could do it.
if I had time to.
Do you feel, well, but I mean, how much time? If
Okay.
we were to have like, what if we were to have like a public event there? Like another.
Or a
public
board- or
forum-
a
Another
board
public
event.
forum, or a board of socializing event. I mean, I know where that WeWork is, it's in a nice location, I don't know what it looks like inside. It's right near our building.
What did they say for?
No, we're gonna, little line price.
Companies have hosted a small breakfast in our third floor pantry. This gives them the platform to post signage, discuss their endeavors, and chat with members about their business. With this partnership, we'll send blasts about the event and can mention the survey. So I think if you
Oh, it's like such a small.
plan an event, do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Okay.
great, like be like, this is a Parks Coffee, and anybody who like. I mean, I won't be around for a few weeks, but, anybody can come to it, sure, go nuts, if you want to do, I mean, as long as it doesn't take, any time or excessive effort from you. That sounds like a nice thing to me, yeah, please. Well, that's great, I'm glad we had this update.
All right, thank you for the update. Looking forward to August and or September and or pops things. All right, this was just an update, so there is no motion or action needed now. But we are also on to the next part of our meeting, which is new business. If anyone has any new business, if there's any member of the public who would like to comment on something that has not been discussed, was not on the agenda in this meeting, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Charles Nye, you are recognized.
Hello? Hello,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Charles,
Oh,
you're recognized.
yes, I was wondering if it's possible, I heard in the meeting, it wasn't part of the major agenda, but something about the matrix being updated. I was wondering if accessibility to the events, the different activations could be one of the factors so that we can keep a track on which parks are having their events accessible to people with disabilities and how often they're doing that. And I was going to make a suggestion about the surveying. The summer streets, at the end of the last 3 Saturdays of August, they close off Park Avenue, from Harlem to the Brooklyn Bridge. I was just thinking if someone was to, have a table there. I remember once I was at Summer Streets and a different community board had, they had some information about what they do. And I was just thinking, if you're going to survey more people, since lots of people would be walking and cycling, that would be a great opportunity to have some sort of table or something like that to, do the surveying. It's just my idea. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. All right, seeing no other members of the public, and no new business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Nothing becomes final until the second Thursday of next month, so June 11th. Because we gotta do the transcript.
Turn my back. Like at least the chairs everywhere. He took like 16 chairs to do it.
Yeah.
He was there. He was so mad at me because.
Christopher, you're still live
What?
on the video.
Yeah, Mike knows them.
Can you help with the transcript?
Yeah, you gotta end this.
No, you gotta keep the transcript first before you end it, or else you lose the transcript.
Pause, stop the recording.
How?
Like, I was like 15.
The button next to transcript. Says pause, stop.
I ran over here and I'm so old. I'm leaving the. Luckily, we meet up.
And you could mute all of us.
Help.
Okay.
Okay.